Unidentified.
Hello, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, good day, wherever you are at. Welcome back to another episode of the Unidentified Celebrity Review, your home for credible news, reviews, and commentary on everything UFOs. Today is a special edition because we're doing a live stream. We have a very special guest today. I'm very excited to have him on. Author, writer for the debrief.org, host of Somewhere in the Skies podcast, TV personality for the CW and the Travel Channel. My hopefully new future best friend, Ryan Sprague. Welcome to the show, my friend. How are you doing?
Luis, what's up? My stepbrother. Hey, the featured image you had, my man, of us as the stepbrothers, I had to bring this for the occasion. Catalina wine mixer, baby. So cheers.
Excellent. I love it. Wonderful. I love it. I've got I didn't match you on that. I do have my girlfriend got me a new top here because she said, the last cast you had, you can hear me sipping. So
I've got the water for you to hydrate.
Cheers to that. And cheers to everyone who's joining us. I've got a whole bunch of new people here in the chat. I'll throw up what you guys are throwing in there. So, that's mine. So there you go. Audrey, thank you so much for loving the pig. Thank you guys for joining us. Subscribe if you haven't already. So, Ryan, thanks for reaching out. First of all, I really appreciate you being on the show. It's funny that when you did reach out, I've noticed that we, first of all, have a couple of friends in common, which I found interesting. And then I also learned that you live in Astoria, Queens, which I used to live in Astoria, Queens. When I first left, I guess, college or whatever, I moved to Astoria and I studied improv and acting out there. And I was there for 7 years. And Astoria was my stomping grounds. Went to the beer garden there. And before I moved, they had opened a second, more modern beer garden. So it was it's no good. Is it not a fun place to hang out anymore?
It's like a nightclub sort of thing. I think it closed already, actually, but it's amazing. We lived within blocks of one another in Queens, and then in LA too, we recently discovered. So we truly are, I think, lost brothers. It's crazy.
Well, I mean, we have Brandon Ellis, Michael Huntington, Tyler Haynes, and James the third. I don't know who James the third is. I can't remember who this guy is, but Brandon Ellis, I definitely know. Tyler Haynes, I know. So that was just funny that and also when you lived in LA, you lived in the same neighborhood that I live in LA right now. So, which is basically Koreatown. Weird.
Crazy.
Weird. Did we just become best friends?
It's happening.
Right? Okay. So, that's what made me think of the cover art. And truth be told, my girlfriend makes all of my thumbnails. She is the artist behind all of that stuff. So very, very talented. She started doing it when I started doing this show in February. So she's brand new to it, just like I am. But I tell her all the time she's really good, but she doesn't believe me. So I'm glad that you and everybody in the chat seems to love it. So. Okay, so let's get into it. So let's first talk about your book, because I know this is something that you're very proud of, and I would be proud of it too. I mean, not every day someone can sit down and have the concentration to write an entire book. I know writing is a very lonely experience, being an actor in Hollywood, working on scripts and reading scripts and acting out scripts. Writing scripts is a completely different animal. Writing sketches is a different animal. Like all of writing is a completely different beast. So the fact that you sat down and you wrote an entire book on a human approach to the UFO phenomenon, which I find very sort of I don't want to say but like almost prophet-esque. It's just nice of you. It's really like everywhere I've seen you, and I'm familiar with your work. The one thing that I remember, the first thing that pops in my brain is that interview you did with Jeremy Corbell on that local news station, and you guys talked about what went down there, and we'll get into it in a moment. But let's talk about the book first. So talk me through like what inspired you to write this book. Why did you do it? You know, were you sort of getting people asking you to do it? I mean, tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, sure. I mean, this was back, the first edition came out in 2016. And, you know, I'd been in the UFO community, or, you know, the UFO research field for a while. I mean, it really started for me when I was 13 is when I did my first ever interview with a UFO witness. And it was a Vietnam veteran who I interviewed about a UFO event he had over the Pacific Ocean. And I talked to the dude for 2 hours on the phone. 3 minutes of it were probably about the UFO event, but overall, it was just an amazing conversation. I took down his entire testimony and I handed it in to my English teacher in middle school. So that was kind of my first dive into, I guess, quote unquote, UFO journalism or interviewing. And I mean, from there, it was just a snowball effect, man. Like I'd been researching the topic for years and years after that. But I didn't fully embrace, I think, my obsession until late in college when I started writing for independent magazines and news sites about UFOs. And that led to the book. I was sick of writing articles that were like, you know, maybe 500 words, where I was really limited in what I could say, what I could cover. And I wanted to go for it. I wanted to write a book. I reached out to Richard Dolan, the historian and UFO researcher. He was kind of the celebrity, the UFO celebrity for me back in the day. And I approached him. I said, I want to write a book. He's like, who are you? Like, cool. Well, what about? I'm like, oh yeah, I probably should have like thought about this before I called him. And that's really sat down and said, he's right. Like, what am I going to write about? What can I contribute to the UFO discussion that hasn't been done before? And for me, I am a playwright in New York City. That's what I do. I write plays. I write screenplays. I've done some television work, script writing, and I wanted to take what I learned in my courses and how to study characters and create characters, implement that in my UFO research and focus on the individual. I mean, you know, man, writing scripts, like, you're writing about the most important pivotal moment in someone's life. That's why we're dropped into a play or a movie at that time. And UFO events are a lot of the time a pivotal moment in a witness's life. It changes them dramatically. So that's what I wanted to do. I wanted my book to be about the people who see UFOs, not exactly what it was, you know, how big, what did the craft look like, what did the beams look like, but how did it affect you? How did it change your life? How did it impact you and your friends and your coworkers? So I just went full throttle with that, and I traveled the country for over a year, meeting people across the United States, some across the pond, and interviewing people and getting their stories and making their testimony mean something. I mean, so many civilian UFO witness accounts don't get told because these people just don't have a platform or a voice to do that, or they're afraid to.
Right.
You know, in the world right now where it's all about military UFOs, what's this Navy pilot scene, and you know, what this dude work on at Area 51, but that's a quarter of the cases down there. So again, I just wanted to give a voice to these hundreds of people and hear their stories for the very first time, put them in print, and put it out to the world. So 2016, the book came out, and then I just came out with the second edition maybe a few months back now, and it's been a crazy ride from there.
Yeah, no, it sounds like it. You know, you're traveling the world studying a topic that most people think about. I think most everyone thinks about this topic, but very few people think about it on a serious level, and very few people even past that do it on this kind of level where we're talking about it on a live stream or traveling the world or writing about it.
Right.
And that's awesome, man. And right now I think I don't know if you agree, but I think 2021, I just said on my last show, and I said it again on tomorrow's show, like, I don't know what it is, and I've never had this feeling before, but I feel like something's coming, man. I can't put my finger on it, can't say what it is. That's 1,000,000% speculation, but it's just, I've never lived in a time where this much information, credible information, and that's underlined and emphasized and capitalized, credible information. And it's no longer taboo, to bring this up at a dinner party or bring this up, at any sort of conversation. And so, yeah, from that aspect, it's exciting times. If there's one story that you can pick from the book that you were just like, damn, this is awesome, what would that be?
There's two specifically, but I'll go with this one because I actually had some developments in it that I included in the second edition. And this happened to a guy named Scott back in the I want to say the mid 70s. Forgive me. There were 200 people in the book, and I try to keep names and dates and everything together. But mid 70s, Scott, a guy that lived in Cuyahoga Falls, Ohio, and he went to a drive-in theater with a buddy of his, and they parked. They were in the car just waiting for the movie to start or whatever. Have a good time, and all of a sudden, all the lights in the entire drive-in theater went completely black. The big floodlights over the parking lot. The screen went black. Everything black, and everyone's like, "Oh, power outage." People kind of just waited around to see what would happen. And they sat there for a really long time. Nothing was going on. So people were booing and, getting pissed off. Let's get out of here. And Scott remembers trying to start his car and the people around him, and nobody's cars would start, man. Everything died. So we're talking literal close encounters of the third kind here.
Yeah.
And please forgive me, I live right next to the subway in Astoria, as you're aware.
You know what I was gonna say? At least one or two of us live in either Los Angeles or New York City when you hear police sirens in the background. So that just comes with the territory. So
ambiance, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. Where was I? Oh yeah.
So yeah.
So cars die, and all of a sudden, Scott looks up over the movie screen, because his friend is like, "Do you see that?" And over the screen comes this huge chevron-shaped craft thing. He didn't know how to describe it. It was massive. He said it floated over the movie screen and then right directly over everyone in the parking lot. He said it was sleek black glass, no lights, no appendages, no windows, nothing. It was just a solid black mass in a chevron shape, and it just floated silently over the parking lot. And Scott said that during that, he had what he refers to as the Oz factor, where everything seemed to almost disorient him, and time seemed to slow down. He couldn't hear his friend next to him. Something was going on as this thing was going over the parking lot. Tip to tip, it covered the entire parking lot. What was that?
What year was this? When did this take place?
Mid-70s. I want to say 76. Okay. If I'm wrong, I apologize to Scott.
No, that's fine. The reason why I asked is I was like, okay, drive-in theater. Makes sense. Okay, 76. Dude, that's a crazy story. That's, I think, Close Encounters of the Third Kind was, I think, released in 1978. So can you imagine having experienced something like that, and then 2 years later seeing a blockbuster film where that scene where the cars, everything in the car, the gravity inside the car seems to just completely change, and everything shuts off and turns on, and it's complete electronic chaos.
Just chaos, man.
Absolute chaos.
Can I add, Luis?
Yeah.
there's a weird twist to this story, and I don't want to miss this because it's kind of the pivotal moment of the case, and what I'm still investigating. So the thing disappears in a field in the distance after it goes over the parking lot. All the lights come back on, people's cars start, and the movie starts. And you would think people would start talking about what just happened. This huge thing was over there, blackout, whatever. And no, Scott gets out of his car. He goes to the restroom and waits in line, and nobody's talking about what just happened.
Yeah.
And it's as if everyone had this like instant amnesia. He remembers going to the bathroom, coming back to the car. They watch the entire effing movie, and then he brings his friend home. And he actually didn't remember any of this until years later when like he saw a UFO book that triggered this memory. And when he told me that, I'm like, okay, so I have no one else to corroborate this story with. It's just you. So like, what do I do? So I was hesitant to put it in the book at first, but I trusted this guy. I mean, I really had this gut feeling that he was telling me the truth. And I spent years, dude, trying to track down any other witnesses. I went to the local newspapers and looked for any UFO sightings in that time period at that movie theater. Nothing. The drive-in's obviously gone at this point, as most drive-ins are. But lo and behold, between the 2016 book and the new edition, I had an email that was in my spam folder, mind you, and which I usually just glaze over and delete everything. And the subject line read drive-in movie theater UFO. And I like my eyes put the brakes on it. I'm like, what is this? And I click on it, and lo and behold, I got this email from this woman who I think she was like maybe a couple years younger than Scott was, but she said that her sister, and her boyfriend saw the same thing only a town over in Ohio, and she believes it was the same year, and she described it just like he did. So that was awesome, dude. I was so excited to tell Scott because, again, this whole thing rested on his shoulders. He said hundreds of people were there, but that he was the only one that remembered it happening. So I was able to put them in touch, and hopefully they'll start a conversation about what the hell that thing was in Ohio. And man, that one just sticks with me.
Was her description of the craft similar, if not the same, to his description?
Very similar. There was one thing that was very different. He said there were no lights or anything on what he saw, but she described it exactly the same. Silent, massive, sleeky glass, black color, moved very slowly. But she said that she saw lights on the corners of the chevron shape that were casting like self-illuminating light, casting down to the ground as if it was like looking for something. And the other thing that really caught my attention with that is her sister didn't remember this thing happening. She had to remind her of it. So again, dude, this like amnesia effect that this thing had on people is what fascinated me most.
Well, it seems, and I've read a lot, and look, and I try to tell this to people who share crazy stories, especially when it gets to like lizard people or anything like that, or even my story, my personal story, because I like to equate this to, I love sports, so I equate almost everything to sports, but it's almost like nobody wants to hear about your fantasy football team, if that makes sense. Like nobody gives a shit, so it's like, if you're going to talk about this, especially if you're going to call Congress, or if you're going to, interact with folks who maybe have some real pull or say in what is released or whatever, or if you have a real interest in it, if you lead with your crazy story that you yourself can barely wrap your noodle around, like it is a crazy event. If you barely believe it yourself, how do you expect the person you're telling to just be like, yeah, I care for sure. Absolutely. It makes total sense, or unless you've had that experience yourself, it's going to be really hard to relate. So, as great as those stories are, and the thing I love about your story, especially the one you just told about, is that it took place before those types of things were in the zeitgeist, were in pop culture. You know, the fact that everything in the movie theater was shut off. The cars wouldn't come back on, you know, and then all of a sudden everything at once just pops right back on. I mean, that is the opening of the film, you know,
right,
and that's cool, you know, but that's cool to hear stories like that. You know, but it's like, again, at the end of the day, the people who make these decisions are going to ask, well, you know, for these extraordinary claims, you're going to have extraordinary proof, and it's, you know, at the end of the day, it's just a story, but those stories pile up. And all of these stories, you find patterns and, you know, and things that keep coming up. And so that's why they're important. And that's why it's important for guys like you to keep writing, to keep telling these stories, even though there's no physical proof, even though the drive-in is completely demolished and gone, even though only one person, but you know, outside of this drive-in movie theater even remembers the event. Like, man. It did happen, you know, somebody did reach out to you, and it's fun. You know, those stories are fun, and they add to the lore, and they add to the catalog of, just like I said, repeatable things, things that happen all the time.
Right. And can I just add, I'm so happy you said that, because yes, I am a relayer of stories, and I know that there are so many people out there who don't put any stock into just a story or witness testimony. And I completely understand that. I completely, fully do. But for me, I do believe that every story has some sort of value. Even if that story is not true, that's still part of this. The deceit, the reasons for someone to make something up, the fantasy-prone individual who was abducted by lizard people. Whether I believe that or not, it doesn't really matter to me personally. If this is what this person believes and it's their truth, I'm at least going to put it out there so that we can ask questions of it. And look, when we don't have evidence, all we have is a story. And we have nothing without witnesses either. We can't collect data. We don't know when an event happened. We don't even know when an event happened about these people. So I think there's a place for all of it in the, you know, the grand scheme of things, for sure.
No, I can disagree with that. I mean, and here's the bottom line is you can't stop it. Like, you know, people are going to tell their stories anyway. So you might as well record them accurately. So that way, if something does come up, we can say, oh, yeah, we did archive that, you know, in so-and-so when so-and-so happened. All right. Well, you know, hey, look, I love that you told that story out of your book. I recommend everyone in the chat definitely check it out. We already had one viewer order it. And so that's awesome. And so the next thing I wanted to talk about, because you do a lot of stuff, man. You're a busy dude, and I'm looking at your YouTube channel right now, and it's just loaded with content. And you know, I can't, you know, it's hard to catch up on everything. But the thing that, you know, if you don't subscribe to Ryan Sprague, the thing I highly recommend you do right now is go to his channel and check it out. Oh, by the way, all of his links are in the description below the video. So any link, his link to his book, YouTube channel, Twitter, all of it is in the description down below. So easy click. And but the thing there's two things that got me super excited. This is the first. This story just came out, so let's talk about it. Oh no, there it is. Okay. Let's take, because this is a wild story. And have you already done this interview?
Yes, no? I conducted. I did last night with Avi Loeb. I conducted the interview, and man, I wish I had wine for that one. Let me tell you that much.
Yeah. Okay, so so for the folks in the chat that don't know, Avi Loeb is a chair at the Harvard Astronomy Club, and he's also a professor at Harvard, an astronomy professor. Correct me if I'm saying anything way off. He recently just came out with a book, and he's been tracking an object within our solar system, and it's the first interstellar object that we've ever tracked with modern science. That's an object that has come from outside of our atmosphere into our atmosphere. Am I getting that right? Because when I read it, I was like, man, what about, does that include meteors?
That's a very good question.
Okay.
I'm not sure if I don't know, Luis. That's a very good question. I could pretend to have an answer, but I think what it was for him, and I'll let you finish, is that it was not a comet and it was not a meteor and it was not an asteroid as we know it. So I'll let you.
So I guess then it would be an interstellar object outside of our solar system that doesn't match anything of known proportion or substance, whether it be, a comet or whatever. Okay, so he's been tracking this thing since 2017. Is that correct?
Yeah. So the object you're talking about is called Oumuamua.
It's,
Yep. From the Hawaiian word scout, which is what they named it because they first tracked this object at an observatory in Hawaii. And like you mentioned, we started seeing it as it was already leaving and getting out of our solar system. So, of course, my biggest question to him and everyone's question is, why the hell did we not get any photos of this thing? We wouldn't be having this debate on exactly what it was because we'd be able to analyze these photos and hopefully figure it out pretty quick. But
wait, I hate to stop you because I just want to clarify something. You said they started watching it on the way out of the solar system. So when they first got eyes on it in 2017, it was already going away?
Yes. Okay. So what's interesting about this is what happened is it came in. And, normally when an object is out there and it's getting closer to the sun, it will pull it in. We spin around the sun because of gravity and solar radiation. All these things create why we do what we do, why we orbit the sun, blah, blah, blah. This object came in and deflected from the sun and headed back out at a trajectory that no comet would, no meteor would. And it behaved unlike anything that scientists, astronomers, astrophysicists have ever seen before. So this is why they could pretty much deduce this thing did not come from within our solar system. Right. And like you mentioned, Avi had been looking at this thing since we first saw it. He published a paper about it and what he thinks it might have been and the way it behaved and why he thinks that. And it was an absolutely fascinating conversation.
Okay, so then I guess, you're not Avi Loeb, right? So I can only ask you questions and hopefully you kind of know or don't know, but
I'll try.
But yeah, I would love to talk to this guy. So that was my question as well. It's like, well, if we have been tracking this thing since 2017 and it has been displaying these weird anomalous things that it's not following the path of a comet, doesn't look like a comet because there's no tail. It's spinning, it's shiny, it's 10 times shinier when it spins. There's so many things going on with this. How is it that he wasn't able to convince SETI and NARCAP and the Department of Defense and how could we not get NASA to turn Hubble telescope at that object and take some damn pictures? We had, even if it's on its way out, you've had since 2017. That's now almost that's 4 years, but almost on 5 years, depending on when they first spotted it. So it's what's going on there? Why did he have an answer for that?
So his explanation to me, and again, that was the biggest question I got from listeners, viewers, and myself, is why? Why are we able to do that? And all he really told me was he gave this analogy of it's like you invite someone to dinner, and by the time you figure out enough about them and want to start up a conversation, they're already in their car and leaving the neighborhood. So that was kind of what he explained to me is we just weren't prepared. I mean, Hubble, the telescope in Hawaii that captured this thing, their sole purpose and primary purpose is to look for comets and asteroids and to make sure that none of these things are going to hit the Earth, basically.
But not only that, but come back, right? Like, I mean, usually comets come back, and we like to sort of know where they're going, right? And where we're going to be when they come back.
Dude, you hit the nail on the head. That was the other thing he told me is comets and asteroids, they keep orbiting our solar system because of the impact of the sun and gravity and everything in between. This object came in, stopped, and took off back into interstellar space. With what Avi says was no sign of quote unquote propulsion. I mean, there was no comet tail. There was nothing behind this thing that would give us evidence that it was moving out. And his explanation, and I won't give away too much because he goes into great detail about what it could be and why he thinks it might be artificial in how it was created by another intelligence. It had no properties of propulsion heaving itself out of there. So that's why he believes that this was an artificial object, and somehow, some way, it was able to stop, change its trajectory, and get the F out of our solar system again.
So let me ask you this then. What are his colleagues saying about this? Are they on board? Do they agree with him? Or is there a pushback against this information?
Huge pushback. I think half our conversation was about his sort of disdain for mainstream science, and especially in the world of astrophysics, and how he is one of the only people theorizing about these things, about Oumuamua, where the rest of the scientific community is like, nah, there's an explanation. We just don't know what it is, but there's got to be another explanation. And he's like, well, that's not how science works. Like everything, you put everything on the table before you say, no, it wasn't alien, it wasn't artificial. So we had a big conversation about that.
I mean, that's wild, man. Like,
yeah.
I don't understand. Like, I'm not asking for science to be like, yes, it's alien. Yeah, for sure. You know, but I would love for someone else other than this guy to come out and be like, yeah, no, he's got some good points here, and we need to look at it a little better. And but unfortunately, we just didn't put enough instruments on it, which is wild, man. So now you've got a Harvard scientist who the science community has just put out there in the dark to fend for himself, and that's bullshit. That's bullshit, man. Like, that's why would you? And so now what? So now he's on the chair at Harvard, and when he walks into the room with his colleagues, they're all like, you're like what the fuck, dude? Like,
it's fucked up, man. And I mean, he kind of described. So he was in the Israeli army as well for a little. You know, when you live there, you have to join the army for a certain amount of time,
right.
And you know, pay your dues. And he said he compares himself to that soldier who's first to put themselves on the front lines before the rest, you know, go in for the attack. So he said, dude, I'm ready. I'll take the hits. If this means that the new generation of astronomers and astrophysicists can build off of the theories I'm bringing forth, if I'm going to get called crazy and you know, kind of a rebel in the scientific community, that's fine. As long as the next generation can embrace it. And if he's right, he's right. If he's wrong, he's wrong. And he brought that up too. He's not saying that this is the be all end all and that Oumuamua was an alien object of artificial origin. He said this is a possibility, but the fact that it was just, you know, poo-pooed so quickly in the scientific community, that's a problem. That's a problem. Issues and stigma in mainstream science.
I think the bigger problem is that you've got 4 years to get all of these scientists to go, okay, yeah, this is strange. Let's point some good instruments at it and at least grab the data. So that way you can really form a hypothesis on what's going on out there. Man, that sucks. But do you know if Avi is friends or knows Haim Eshed over in the other Israeli, you know, scientist and father of the space program over that the Israeli Space Force or, you know, Air Force? Do they know each other? Are they familiar with each other? Do you know that?
I did not get a chance to ask him that. I would have loved to have known what he thought about that whole thing. hopefully, I mean, I'm in touch with him. Just tonight actually, so maybe I'll throw that one to him and put it up on Twitter or something if he gets me an answer for it. You'll be the first to know.
I would love to know, because I wonder if it's because he also, Avi wrote a book as well that sort of was in conjunction with this article, right?
Yeah, it comes out in a couple weeks. It's called Terrestrial. And again, it starts with Oumuamua, but goes far beyond that. And what these artificial objects could be that he says are going to continue to be coming into our solar system and leaving, and how we can better prepare for it. So I think that's what's most important in the book. It's not, let's speculate about what Oumuamua could be, because we're never going to know. It's gone.
Right.
It's gone. This will not be the last Oumuamua. So let's get ready and put all eyes and telescopes on it,
Yeah, no, that I just, it boggles the mind how that's not priority one when something like that just wanders into the solar system. Because like we said, it's the first interstellar object to ever come into our solar system. How is it that NASA isn't the first one in line going, okay, yep, let's take a look at that. Let's take a look at that. Like how, and you know what? And how is it that nobody's asking the director of NASA that question? I'd love to hear him. I'd love to see him squirm on that question, dude. Like, why have it? Look, I get it. You guys are busy. You're trying to get on the moon or whatever, but you've got all of these telescopes and satellites that we, the taxpayer, help put up there. And you're telling me you guys aren't interested in the first interstellar object to come into our solar system? Why? Why? I would love to see them squirm. Anyway, so I've got more questions about this, but I also just want to see your interview, and I don't want to give away too much. But it is interesting. And here's the last thing I'll say about it. The possible blowback from an academic person like this coming out and giving us this hypothesis is unimaginable. And when I say that, I mean, we don't know who else this guy coming out might inspire down the road to be like, you know what? Screw this. I've got the data. I think this is right. I'm going to write a paper. I don't give a shit what anybody says. And there's slowly in the last month, and I got to give a shout out to Martin Willis, because Martin Willis had a gentleman on, and I'm forgetting his name right now, but he was an academic, physicist type, a professor at a university, talking about, stuff coming off of craft and how this has been bottled up and looked at. And he's got the papers to prove it. He's got the data to back it up. And I was like, damn. And I got on the phone and I asked him the question. I'm like, what do your colleagues think? And how do you feel about how they sort of look at you? Same question that I would have asked Avi. And his response is, I don't give a damn. And I'm like, yes, dude. Like, we need more scientists to say, I don't give a damn. I don't care what my colleagues say. I want to look at it. I want to study it. I want to get instruments on it, because damn it. Like, imagine just for a moment, that thing was just a piece of a spacecraft that just blew up or something and just happened to come into our solar system. If we got pictures of that, it like how that would inspire a generation of scientists. And even if you didn't get pictures, just say if you got, any other data, whether it be the size, the shape, maybe the metals it could possibly be made out of, because I know there are ways to determine that. If we can get the elements of a star in a different solar system, why can't we get the elements of something flying by in our solar system? So it boggles my mind, dude. But okay, so let's move on. Sorry, I just had to say that last thing. So the other conversation that you're about to have and that you're about to drop is this conversation with Lou Elizondo. So again, like, you are bringing the heat in 2021, my friend. You are bringing the heat. So okay, let's talk about this just for a hot second. Promote the show, because I know it's on tomorrow night, right?
So.
Or am I wrong? I don't know.
I'll
let you promote it. Sorry.
Oh, sorry, man. Yeah, and I apologize. My end here is glitching like crazy. So if I don't answer you right away, It's totally my Wi-Fi issue. Hopefully it'll get a little better. So I'm doing an interview tomorrow, recording an interview with Lou Elizondo. And actually, I guess I can drop this here too. We're also going to be joined by Sean Cahill. And for anyone that doesn't know, that was one of the dudes who witnessed the now famous Tic Tac UFO event. So he's going to be with us to discuss his entire perception of all of this. And they're together. Lou and Sean are going to be together. They're going to both be on video with me. And we don't know why they're together, but one could assume that they might be working on something together. Yeah. I mean, we do know now that Lou Elizondo has left to the Stars Academy in some capacity. And I will be asking him specifics about that. He said he's open to any questions. Yeah, man. I mean, I've been waiting for this interview for almost a year and a half. And yeah, well, I'm still
okay, let me ask you this. Do you have what is the most pertinent question that you have for him?
Oh, man.
If you had only one question you could ask Lou Elizondo, what would it be? I'll tell you mine while you think about it, since you need a second.
Yeah, you go first.
And I hope you ask him this. And I'll preface this with, look, the guy that's sitting with you, okay, Sean Cahill, all of the other servicemen that have been interviewed on Unidentified seasons 1 and 2, all of these brave servicemen and women who have come forward and given us their stories and their experiences and have gone on the record and have put their face and their names out there. I want to know your UFO story because I know he's got one. That's my number one question for him. I think, honestly, it's probably the most important one. And I know he doesn't owe us a goddamn thing. I get it. He doesn't owe us anything. But to me, you've got all of this brotherhood, right? All of these guys that have put their necks on the line. I want to hear your story because you've got one. And I think if it'll add credibility to all of the men behind you who are backing you up on this. It'll put a lot of vulnerability out there, I think, because to share something like that is to be incredibly vulnerable and to be, just open to a lot of criticism. But at this point, who cares? Who cares when you've got
what's there to lose?
What's there to lose when you've got John Brennan, the former head of the CIA, when you've got Avi Loeb, when you've got Haim Mashed, when you've got, Lieutenant David Fravor or Commander David Fravor. You've got all of these credible people putting their names and putting their stories out there. Come on, man, let it fly. Let it fly. That would be if I had only one question, that would be it. Can you please tell us your UFO story? Because I think at this point you don't owe us, but you owe us, if that makes sense.
I get it, man. And that was actually one of the number one questions, the most popular one. I threw that up like, I'm going to take some listener questions. And usually when I do that, I get like maybe 10 at the most. And I can maybe get to like 3 or 4 of them during the interview. Because some of these people are on strict, time tables when you interview them. They're doing this stuff all day long and whatnot. I counted, the last thing I counted right before I got on with you, I'm up to 372, 73 questions.
Yeah.
It's
that's awesome.
Insane.
That's awesome.
So I don't know what to do because I only have so much time with these guys. I've got a million questions. As well as everyone who submitted, want all the answers. So I'm going to see what I can do. But that question will most definitely be asked. It was one of the most popular ones.
I would say, listen, if you're going to ask that question, I would say maybe preface it or find a way to preface it with like I did. You kind of owe your military brethren, put the pressure on him to be like, hey, all these other guys, including the guy in the room with you, that guy has told a crazy story, like come on, bro, come on,
Yeah.
you know. So that maybe that's a different way to ask him. And look, I love Lou Elizondo. I've said before, I've met him. When I did meet him, we've both figured out he's Cuban, I'm Cuban, he's from Miami, I'm from Miami. Like, you know, his name's Luis, my name's Luis. Like, a lot of similarities in our lives. We're both the same size. He's a little shorter, but he's a stocky dude. You know, like it was just scary. But yeah. So okay. So other than that question, what's the question you're gonna ask? Like, what's your favorite question maybe that you'll throw out there? That's yours.
Okay. Go with two, because there's two major things I want to know. Since we know Elizondo is not going to be working with To the Stars in the capacity that he once was, I want to know, is he going to be working with UAPTF at all? Are the 5 observables that the secret Pentagon UFO program looked at, that Lou directed, is this going to be what the task force now is going to be using to investigate UFOs? So I want to know if him and Christopher Mellon, if these guys are in contact with the people who are part of this task force, and what we can expect from that in terms of cooperation and transparency. The second thing I want to know is, I know for a fact, and I believe he shared this publicly, even on John Greenwald's interview he did with Lou, that he's been to Skinwalker Ranch. And he said that it was one of the most disturbing experiences of his life. So
really?
I'm going to on that, dude. I want to know.
Oh man, I didn't want to talk about Skinwalker Ranch. I didn't want to talk about it because God, there is no. It's okay. It's okay. I mean, look, I'm willing. You know, here's the thing I say about the UFO topic all the time. It's okay to have a "what have you done for me lately" attitude about things. And if Lou Elizondo goes to Skinwalker Ranch and says, "Hey man, something fucking weird's happening there," then I'll go back and I'll pay attention to it again. But I can tell you that Skinwalker Ranch show, I don't think did a lot of justice to the study of the ranch.
That's fair.
I had a real hard time. The science part of me was like, why is the bodyguard telling the scientists how the study's going to be conducted? In what world is that okay? You know, and look, I loved the dragon character. I think it was one of the funniest things I've seen in 2020. I had a lot of fun making or telling my girlfriend how I wanted those thumbnails to look with the dragon, because I broke down every single episode. I talked about every single one. So it just, there was a lot of things about that show that I didn't like. I wish they would do it more like The Curse of Oak Island, which is it's a boring show, but it's a boring show because they do the scientific method and they follow it.
They do the science.
You know,
science could be boring.
And it's boring. And the reason why they've gone as long as they have is because those brothers are going to be digging on that island, whether there's a camera crew there or not. So might as well film it, you know? And that's sort of the beauty of that Oak Island thing, is these guys don't give a shit. They're millionaires. They're like, we'll dig whatever we got to do. And I wish a Brandon Fugel or a Robert Bigelow would come out and be like, you know what? I don't give a shit. I'm releasing everything. What are you going to do to me? I'm a billionaire. What are you going to do? Like, I'm conducting my own studies. I've got my own scientists. Yes, I hired them from your laboratories. What are you going to do? Like, I don't understand why these guys buy these properties and do these studies and then don't release anything for anybody else to do any sort of cross-examination on it. Like, why when you want more eyeballs picking apart the studies that you've done? Like, that's the way science works, dude. Put it out there for people to publicly pick it apart. And if the stronger the case is, the less they could pick it apart, then now we're cooking with fire. I just don't understand, like, why you go on 60 Minutes and tell everybody, yeah, I believe there's aliens, but I'm not going to show you anything, and I'm sure as hell not going to provide any sort of information that I've found through my billions of dollars and access to people. It's just like, dude, why are you doing that? For what purpose? Maybe because he's trying to get government contracts to put, space tents in space. I don't know, dude, but you're a billionaire. Why don't you let it fly? Sorry, I went on a huge rant, but
can I respond to that quickly?
Please.
I completely agree with you. First of all, I think the show could be doing a much better job at the scientific analysis that's going on at the ranch. And I also believe that they could be more transparent and more public with their findings instead of just what we see in a 45-minute edited television episode. On the Robert Bigelow thing, we have to remember that his work on the ranch at the time was with his own money and the money of the U.S. government, with the OSAP program, which was kind of part of ATIP, kind of not. They moved ATIP into OSAP so that it could be a special access program. So anything Bigelow discovered and documented on the ranch did have to be turned over to the government. So that might be why Bigelow isn't able to be as public as he wants about what he discovered there.
Do you think? Yeah, no, sorry, but
there's always a but, right?
Yeah.
Brandon Fugel, the new owner, and I've talked to him on the phone a couple times. He is going to be on the show eventually. I like the guy, but I also agree with you that, like, dude, you promised that even before season 1 that you were going to create like a database where we would be able to look at everything you guys were discovering and the analysis, and we could bring a community of scientists, technologists together to look at that data. That's a community project, and that's not what we're getting. Hopefully we will when season 2 releases, I think, this summer.
Do you know if it's been made? Do you know if season 2 has been shot?
Yes, completely shot. So now is the time, man. Like, get that website ready so when your new season drops, we can start talking about it and seeing what you guys discovered and where we can take it from there. So I agree with you on all points. Skinwalker Ranch is a weird ass place. And the fact that Elizondo said that some of that stuff was as equally disturbing as what he experienced, as a counterintelligence agent and having been in wartime in the military. And he said this shit was just as disturbing as that. Like, what the hell does that mean? That's not like just a light in the sky or, a shadow in the corner. Some crazy shit must have been going on. So yeah, hopefully I can push a little of that out of him. We'll see.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I just don't understand how you can go on 60 Minutes and say, yeah, aliens are real, but that's it.
What a weird interview,
wash your hands of it and walk away and just be like, it's kind of like tossing a grenade in a foxhole and be like, I'm walking away. Boom, everything's over. It's like, dude, like, why even why even say it? Just like, why even say it? If you and part of me goes, look, maybe you're right. Absolutely. Maybe because it was a half government contract that he was forced to turn over all of the data and all of the files. But for me, I think a billionaire, if he really wants to figure out a way to copy those files or copy that data, he'll do it. He can get it done.
And he probably has.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He probably has. And look, and here's the thing. Again, we're talking about a billionaire, man. There's only like 1,600 of them on the planet. There's not a lot of them, and he can, why doesn't he just go back to Skinwalker Ranch? Here's what I'd like to see at Skinwalker, just going back to it. I would love for it to be an open scientific study. If you have scientific equipment, or a good argument as to why you need to study the ranch or come to the ranch, or you have a theory as to what you think is on the ranch, come on down, bring your equipment, and we'll let you on the ranch and do whatever the hell you want. But as soon as your experiment's over, you got to get off, obviously, but that it should be and it also should, I think that land should be given back to the native people. It should be public land. Donate it. If you want to heal the spiritual wounds or whatever bad juju's going on there, you make a deal with the native people. Listen, I'm going to donate this ranch to you, but you got to let us come and do our research, of course, with proper preparation and enough advance warning that we're coming. But you work that out in a contract, but hey, the land is yours. Do whatever you want. It belongs to you. But please, if we can't have your permission to come back with whatever we want, whenever we want, and study it and try to understand it more, and add validity to your people's story, your native people's story. And I think that's the number one thing you should do. Donate the land first and foremost. And I think that solves a lot of issues. And then you open it up and you can you're the billionaire, take all the credit, dude, like it's your ranch kind of still, but you donated it. So all of this still makes you look like a cool dude, like a good guy. Cause let's be honest, you're not putting a pool on that ranch. It's not turning into the Playboy Mansion. What are you going to use it for other than to study this crazy stuff? So might as well give it back. Let the land heal if there is a spiritual juju going on. And I think that would be cool to see.
Dude, and I mean, Skinwalker is a native legend lore.
Yes.
I mean,
yes.
You're completely right. So
a lot of blood has been spilt on that land.
Oh my God, so much. And I think you're right. I think, enough is enough with the I guess buying up this land to do scientific studies. I think it's interesting and important, and clearly something is going on. But when you're told by the native people that you shouldn't be messing with this stuff, you probably shouldn't be messing with this stuff. I mean, that's the point. So it might be good for science, but it might not be good for the land and the people overall. But isn't that always the struggle with science? I feel like a lot is often sacrificed to further progress our understanding of the world and the universe. And sometimes places have to suffer. They're dealing with that in Hawaii as well, where they want to build another big observatory on ancient land. And there's been huge protests about it. It's a big hot button issue. And look, I'm all for exploring space and everything like that. But at the same time, like, you can't mess with what's been there for thousands of years and is not yours. So it's a constant struggle of ethics and morality and spirituality. And it can get messy, it can get bloody, it can get weird, it can get awkward. But hey, that's the world we live in. And I don't know, man. I don't know what else to say about that, except I agree that the land should be given back to the people.
Yeah, for sure. I think that, again, that would heal a lot of things. And I think if you give it back and you say, hey, look, we're coming back here with a bulldozer. We'd love to dig in this part, this big, this deep. Is that cool? Awesome. Let's go. And, do your prayers over the machinery and do your prayers over the hole before you dig it. Do all of those things, so that way everything is in, good vibes and you go, man. But but let's just be clear. The dragon should not be making decisions on scientific studies, period. Full stop. Full stop.
I'm not going to say anything. He could kick my ass.
Oh, I'm sure he could. There's no doubt about it. I mean, if John Wick met the dragon, I don't know who I would put my money on.
Battle of the century.
I really don't know. Okay. Yeah. But it would be a hot fight. It would sell a lot of pay-per-view. Okay. So enough Skinwalker Ranch. We covered Lou, and good luck with your interview, man. Cause I'm really, really looking forward to it. I would love to interview Lou Elizondo, although I have a feeling if I had him on my show, he would never come back. Because I want to know, dude. I want to know. And I don't care. Like, access for me, I love it. I love talking to folks like you. I want more of you guys back on, but I'm going to ask you the tough questions because I don't want to, I just don't, I don't think it's fair to this topic to sugarcoat things or dance around the topics. And so, okay, so let's get into the next topic, and that is Bob Lazar. This is probably the most hot button topic on the planet. I guess, where do I start? Okay, first of all, I don't believe Bob Lazar. I believe parts of his story. I don't believe all of it. If I had to take a guess, and I guess I'll ask you the same question, I'm going to 100% speculate here. Don't know this for sure. But if I had to take a guess, I'm going to say Bob Lazar is a very sophisticated version of Richard Doty. He's a disinformation campaign artist. He's telling people half-truths. I think it is very possible that we have either A, cracked some sort of very advanced propulsion system on our own, and we've done it maybe even a long time ago, and we're just covering it up, and we're trying to figure out how it really, really works. Because if you listen to like a Michio Kaku and they talk about technology, he says in 20 years, we'll have the ability to create matter in something the size of a microwave. But the problem with that is if you put a machine like that in society and someone types in, bomb into this matter making machine, it creates a bomb. You can't just throw that tech into society. And I think if we crack something like this, it's sort of the same theory. Is like, you can't just throw anti-gravity or this crazy propulsion system into society, because we don't know who's going to create, say, the next nuclear weapon or whatever. So from that aspect, I totally understand. But I think that's why his story rings true, is because he's giving us pieces of truth. And so because those truths are really sexy, especially when a Commander Fravor's like, yep, that description of how the machine moves and what it looks like and what it did, absolutely, Bob Lazar. And so you got a really smart dude like Commander David Fravor, Joe Rogan, Jacques Vallée, George Knapp. You got all of these people, Jeremy Corbell, who have just latched onto this story because these single truths are so good, but everything else around it for me is just bullshit. It's absolute bullshit. And the thing I think that sold it for me the most was there is, and I've said this on before, there's a channel on YouTube, the behavior analyst, I believe is the name of the channel. And it's three guys who work for the CIA. They've interviewed terrorists. Their jobs, their lives are body language. And when they looked at Bob Lazar, they go, this guy is not being honest. There are truths in there. There's nuggets where he's being honest, but he is not being honest. And then they did an analysis of the Berkshire's UFO witness. And they came to the conclusion that this guy's telling the truth. So I know there's no motive for these behavior analysts to discredit Bob Lazar. They preface this hour-and-a-half long breakdown with, look, I want this to be real. I want this story to be real so bad, but he's just not being honest. And I think that if Bob Lazar is an advanced version of Richard Doty, he's giving us these sprinkles of truth, and all of this is just a distraction to what the military is really working on. And the reason why I believe this is because they've done it so many times. So many times. It's just sort of the weirdness of Bob Lazar, like how you can't confirm his school records, how he can't even remember certain parts of MIT. It's like, dude, like, look, if there's one thing I know about MIT is the party square, where everybody hangs out and figures out where they're going to go drink beer after, school or whatever. And you don't know where that is. Like, come on, dude. If there's one thing I know about Bob Lazar gets down. He parties. Okay. He was arrested for opening a brothel. This dude knows how to party. Okay. So don't tell me that you don't know the square where all of your buddies figuring out where to party with an IQ as high as yours. Give me a break, dude. I don't believe it. When he was in front of a judge and the judge was like, hey, what's your background? And the court's trying to figure out his background, and he didn't change his story. Now, apparently there's something, I haven't read it yet. And when I interviewed Martin Willis, he was telling me like, yeah, that's bullshit. That's just not true. And I've got the paperwork to show you that that's just not accurate. And I'm like, okay, so then why do we keep going back to this guy? Why do we keep giving this guy the time? And look, I mean, for example, and I'm sorry, I'm going on a rant here then. I don't even know if there's a real just question, but we've got all the time in the world. So let's just
absolutely, man.
Let's just go for it. So I don't think, when you've got Jeremy Corbell, and the first time I watched that movie, I'm like, oh my God, this is awesome. And then I watched it the second time. I'm like, dude, something's wrong. This is not right. Something's wrong in this documentary. And when you compound all of these things and how he just sort of slithers his way through life, and he's like, his occupation is very strange. When you look at his website is straight out of 1996. I don't understand how a person this brilliant can have a website so terrible. There's just all of these red flags where I'm like, dude, there's just something about this that doesn't ring true. I want to believe it. I want it to be real. And I think the beautiful thing about Jeremy Corbell, the thing that I really love about the dude, is that his films have forced every other UFO film out there to elevate their production, to up their game. And I cannot thank Jeremy Corbell enough for this, but I wish to God he would stop with this Bob Lazar shit. It's driving me crazy. When people have pulled videos from Close Encounters of the Third Kind of a scene where the guy puts his hand into the hand scanner that Bob Lazar describes, you know, like it's like, dude, like, why are you ignoring that? Like, that is clearly the same thing that he described, and the machine matches the pictures that you showed him. So what are we doing here, dude? Like, what are we doing? We're selling a story. I feel like we're selling a story because it's a distraction. It's a really, really, really good distraction. And here we are. We're talking about it. We're putting it on the table as if this is something valid to really dive in deep to. And I wanted to get your opinions on it because I just completely laid out all of mine. so you know, what do you think about Bob Lazar? What do you think about this story? Does it help the UFO community to propagate the story, keep talking about this guy? And you know, because I have a feeling the 40-year anniversary is coming around real soon, and we're going to get another special edition DVD with extra footage. You know, it's just like that reveals really not that much, you know? And so like, what do you think, dude? I'm gonna shut up. You go.
I knew you were gonna ask me this, and I tried to really compartmentalize my thoughts on Bob Lazar because I'm frustrated, man. Just like you are and so many other people. I myself had always been an avid Bob Lazar believer, and I think you touched on the key word, and that's want, the want to believe. And that clouds the judgment on so much in this field of UFOs, conspiracy theory, anything, whatever you like, insert topic here. Preconceived notions can really cloud your judgment. So for me, and I will say off the bat, like, I interviewed Corbell on the TV show that I was a part of. We covered Bob Lazar on the show. Jeremy's a friend, a colleague. And like you said, he has upped the ante for documentaries pertaining to UFOs tenfold. Him and James Fox have just completely changed the landscape of what can be done in filmmaking with this topic. But on the flip side, the Bob Lazar film came out, and there were some compelling things in it, and some not so much. Some that maybe Jeremy or George Knapp or individuals who really follow this thought were bombshells, but for the mainstream public and people who don't know any of this, they look at it like that's nothing. Like that doesn't matter. Like, yeah, the hand scanner that was in a movie years prior to that, or you know, his laboratory being raided by the FBI to find element 115. I know that individuals like Micah Hanks, John Greenwald, Tim McMillan have pretty much debunked that. No, it had nothing to do with that. The raid was about something completely different. So there's a lot of controversy and obvious baggage that comes with Bob Lazar. So for me, I change my mind every other day, and it's frustrating. And I think you're right. I think there are so many more things and topics and issues that we could be discussing than continuing to propagate the Bob Lazar story. I will say this. I believe aspects of Bob Lazar, like you do, the most compelling things for me would have to be probably him bringing people out to the area around Site 4 at predetermined times that he knew test flights were going to be going on, and they saw things. That right there for me says, okay, he knows something, and he probably did work there at some point in some capacity. But I have been under the impression a lot more lately, like a lot of people and yourself, that there are truths between a lie or two lies between a truth. And maybe it was planned that way. Either Bob is a disinformation person himself, or maybe he believes everything he was shown when he worked there, but he's the one being played. They want to see what he puts out there. Maybe it was Russian tech that he was working on. Maybe it was Chinese. Maybe it was something highly exotic that we found. And they told him, hey, you're working on a flying spacecraft from an alien civilization.
Like,
here's some body. You know, man.
I love the idea
the story he puts out there.
Yeah, I love the idea of him being given like tech that maybe we had already figured out, and him like looking at it and being like, what the hell is this? You know, how does this work? Why does this exist? Yeah. And because they knew, because at least from the hiring aspect of Bob Lazar, it seemed like things were rushed. It didn't seem like he went through a crazy security check to get access to the most secret base on the planet. And you know, you get in there and it's almost as if they wanted him to say this, you know, like they wanted him to leak this because they knew he was going to do it. And so they're like, yeah, let's get people talking about UFOs. Let's get them talking about aliens, because you know what? This, when you look at a stealth bomber or any one of these new drones or planes from the side perfectly, not like this or like this or like this, but like this. They look like ovals, man. They are so streamlined. Like if you're looking at that thing from 3,000 feet away and you see it, like, Jesus Christ, what the hell is that? And it turns like this and just, you know, does Mach 2 out of there. Like, yeah, that's fucking crazy. What is that? Especially if you're not a pilot, you know, like if you don't know what you're looking at. But you know, look, again, I think, like you said, I think we agree. It's just sprinkles of truth with some. For me, I think it's a lot of bullshit around the sprinkles of truth, and it's a distraction that they want us to be talking about. They want us to have this conversation.
Absolutely, man. And we are. So they won. Yeah. But that being said, I want to get your opinion on this. Two things. I think 3, 4, 5 things. I believe Bob Lazar is a loose cannon. You can tell by the way he talks. He's not afraid to speak his mind. He doesn't give a shit what people think about what he's saying. His truth is his truth. End of story. Maybe that's why they didn't do a vetting process as much as you would expect. Maybe they knew that this guy wasn't bright enough to catch on to what they're doing. And they said, he's a loose cannon. Let's have him work on it. He's not going to know what the dude next to him's doing on this reverse engineering.
Crazy hours. We'll call him at weird times.
Him up. Yeah. And it did. I mean, feasibly, this ruined his life in many ways. Him coming forward, you know, he lost his wife during all this. 2 wives, which is kind of weird. That's a whole other story.
But to be fair, he does own a house. You know, it's not like it's completely destroyed his life. He's got a mortgage. You know, he's got a car. Like I live in an apartment in LA, and you live in we're the ones who are struggling, not Bob Lazar. You know, like and so like I don't think his life has been destroyed. I think, if anything, he sort of gets a nice kick out of this. Like he's either A, having a really damn good time with this, or B, he, like you said, he did actually work on something. He thought it was alien, and then, like you said, he's just a loose gun, and he let it fly and he let it fire, and he thinks in his brain that's what it is. You know, yeah, absolutely, could be either one of those.
Here's the biggest issue, man.
Yeah.
He claims he is in possession of element 115. He buried it in a desert. And I'm sorry, I blanked out there for a minute on the screen. Yeah. Am I okay? Okay.
Yeah, you're back.
God, this is Astoria Queens Wi-Fi, man. I'm hating it. He claims that he has element 115. He buried it out in the desert somewhere, and it's, you know, kind of what he uses to stay alive, that they won't come hunt him down because he knows where it is and he'll go public with it if whatever, a life insurance of some sort.
Right.
I don't buy that shit for a second. I think that is completely misguided if it's true. If this guy who claims that the technology he worked on could change humanity forever, and we're in the middle of a pandemic. We're in the middle of a climate change crisis. We're in the middle of one of the worst times in modern American and global history. And he's not going to bring this out now. That's not a heroic thing. Like, it's a very selfish thing to do. So I take a huge issue with that.
Yeah, that if he did that, that would ruin his life. Because now you're talking possible prison time. You know,
absolutely.
If you've got a solid version of element 115, as far as we know, the closest we can get is like a gaseous form for like a millisecond, and then it's gone. Yep. You know, but here's the thing: is element 115 was when in 1989, when Bob Lazar told this fantastic story about element 115. In 1989, element 115 was being talked about. It was being circled in scientific journals. It's not like, hey, science has found a new element. It's like only nerds and the internet didn't exist. Like only people in the scientific community would have heard of element 115. Right. And it's safe to say that Bob is kind of a nerdy guy and probably read the Scientific American Journal now and again and would take these little things and throw into his story. So that's why I lean more toward like he's getting a kick out of this. And I think he's getting a kick out of this, and I think it's an organized kick. Like they are having it. Like he never gets in trouble. He never gets in real. Like if this was true, why didn't they arrest him?
Yeah.
Why didn't they arrest him? If he's breaking that many security oaths, why did they arrest him? And then and I go, look, and if he is telling the truth, then that example of breaking security oaths clearly means nothing. So that should give the green light to say, I don't know, a Lou Elizondo. You know, like why wouldn't that, you know, if he's so truthful, you know, if it's such a rock solid story, it should motivate a Lou Elizondo. Well, look, Bob Lazar told all that crazy shit. I might as well just let it fly too. Who cares? Nobody's going to do anything.
Exactly, man. And that is going to be one of my questions for Lou tomorrow is his thoughts on Bob Lazar, because you have a huge disconnect between what the secret Pentagon UFO program supposedly studied and looked at, which were blurry videos of aerial phenomena. And then you have someone claiming that he reverse engineered technology from aliens in 9 separate spacecraft in a hangar in Nevada. There's a big disconnect between these two of why didn't ATIP look at what Bob Lazar was saying or what he might be doing? So there are a lot of issues and there's a lot of questions to be asked, man. And I change my mind every day on Bob. I think it really comes down to I want to believe him. I believe certain aspects, but just like you, I've had my heart broken in this UFO field so many times where I've been bullshitted and I've been lied to, and or I just came to realize that something is just quite not what it seems. And I think that's with Bob Lazar. And I think it's time to move on. If there's new evidence or developments, I'm going to take a look at it. But for me personally, that's not where my interests lie right now. It's in the amazing kind of world we're living in right now in relation to UFOs. And I think we're on the precipice of something big. And maybe Lazar will be a big part of that. Maybe he won't. But I honestly don't care at this point. I think we've exhausted every avenue with this story. I don't think there's really much left to be said. Jeremy Corbell might think differently, and I respect that. And whatever he has, like, put it out there and let the public decide, like we always do, and then let's move on and move forward.
Right. No, I'm with you, man. It's the last thing I guess I'll say on it is that from a Jeremy Corbell and a George Knapp perspective, and again, I'll reference Martin Willis just because he had a beautiful analogy. If you walk, because Martin Willis is a antique appraiser. He's like, if you walk into someone's collection and you find one piece that is fake, now you have to question the entire collection. And so for me, I'm done flip-flopping on Bob Lazar. As far as I'm concerned, it's bullshit, not worth anyone's time. And so then the next question is, well, how can I then trust the reporting or rely on the facts, quote unquote, that are given by George Knapp and now Jeremy Corbell, because look, I respect their work. I know what they've done. I understand how important they are, especially, you know, we said Jeremy Corbell, making sure that all of these productions are stepping up their game. But at the same time, I don't want to accuse anybody of anything, but it's just like facts are facts, man. You can't argue with facts. And I don't want to be a jerk, but you're kind of pushing bullshit. And it's like, at what point do I just, you know, again, it's like, what have you done for me lately attitude. And if what have you done for me lately is pushing this story that everyone seems to think is not right. There are elements that are just not making sense. Like, you know what I would have loved to see in the Bob Lazar interview? Why not interview his ex-wife? Why not interview cousins? Why not interview classmates from elementary school and high school? Where's his dad? Yeah. What happened to his father? Like, these are people that if you really, really wanted to find out about Bob Lazar, you could have dug a lot deeper than his neighbors and his mom. You know,
that's
I'm sorry, but that's not journalism. That is not journalism, and it's not a documentary. It is a film. It's a story. You're giving us a story. And so, you know, I will always look at any information that either one of these two guys drop, because I think it's every, you know, I don't want to call them a broken clock, but a broken clock is right twice a day. And sometimes you're going to get some great stuff out of them, and sometimes you're just not. And right. I think that's kind of how I feel about them. I don't know if you have any sort of feelings, or am I being a jerk when I say stuff like that? Or am I being too hard on these guys? I personally, I don't care. You know, like, these are journalists. We have to hold their feet to the fire. You know, we have to make sure that the information they're putting into the pool of this very confusing topic is solid, you know, and is scientifically backed. Yep. And if it's not, I'm going to call you out on it, you know?
As you should, man. And look, you're right. If you're going to bring extraordinary claims, you need extraordinary evidence, as the old saying goes. And the last sort of the nail in the coffin with me with Bob Lazar's, I was really looking forward to his autobiography that came out. I was like, oh, good. We're going to get the inside story from his mouth and from his mouth only. And he's going to go deep into this stuff. And this will be it. This will be the thing that makes me decide whether I really believe him or not. And I got the book. I read it. And it was one of the worst autobiographies I've ever come across. I don't know if he wrote it or if it was ghostwritten, but if it was ghostwritten, first of all, that person should never write a book again, because it was terrible. I found so many errors in grammar and structure and everything, but not even from a literary standpoint. The information in the book was less than what has been made public. You could find more on a Wikipedia page about Bob Lazar than what was in that entire book. And Element 115 was not mentioned once in his entire book, which is one of the biggest aspects to this entire thing. So I was extremely let down with that book. I wish I had never read it. It didn't add to anything. It only took away from me. And I kind of made my views public a few weeks ago on my own Twitter of, I'm growing really frustrated with the Bob Lazar story. And that's nothing against Jeremy Corbell or George Knapp. It has everything to do with Bob and just the not knowing and the fact that we may never know.
And conversations like this is like exhausting, you know, because we're giving all this time. But I'm just going to end it here. I swear to God, last thing on Bob Lazar. If this website does not scream CIA to you, then you're blind. Look at this website, dude. What is going on
my computer?
Nuclear. What is happening? Why is your website? I know nothing about building websites, and my website is 10 million times better than this. 10 million. 10 million times better. This screams CIA. Okay, I'm done. Swear to God. Okay. All right. So we talked about Javi Lee. We talked about Haim Eshed. I've got a question for you, because you are a journalist, and I do know, I'm not going to give his name, how I know him, but I do know an F-16 fighter pilot who ran bombing missions in Afghanistan, who's got some amazing UFO stories. When you hear a story like that from a credible person in that realm, how do you approach them to go and be public and tell their story on either film or on a podcast? What's the best way to approach someone with a story like that?
First of all, someone like that is we hunger for those types of witnesses.
Right.
Trained observers in the sky who know how to disseminate between what they're seeing and what they're not. So if you can get in touch with a pilot, with a grounds crew on a military installation, an astronomer, any of these people who we build up to be the most credible witnesses of UFOs, it's great. But the biggest issue is most of them are not willing to go on the record with their names. Either they're still in the military or they're still involved with an institute in their field of study, and they don't want it because that ridicule factor, it remains. I mean, I think we're more accepting of the UFO topic now more than ever. And like you mentioned at the beginning, I'm having talks with my parents about UFOs over the dinner table when that never would have been a thing when I was younger. Or just it comes up in normal conversation. It's hard. So, I mean, here's a good example. I'm coming out with an article. I can't tell you exactly when yet, but I have a Navy serviceman who was on a military installation and on 5 separate occasions had a close encounter with a triangular UFO. And there were other witnesses on the installation with him when this happened. So, of course, naturally, my first question is, okay, did you report it to anyone? And he said, the first time I tried, and my superior told me to stop drinking on the job and not to bring it up. So, I mean, that's enough for someone in the military to not talk about it again, because word travels quick on a military base and you're going to become the nut until you have people like Kevin Day, Sean Cahill, Gary Voorhees, Commander Fravor coming forward and kind of paving the way for these military people to feel emboldened and empowered to finally tell their story. So I'll say this, it's easier now than it ever has been before to get military people to go on the record and use their own names because they're seeing their fellow servicemen and servicewomen doing it. And it's okay. And we have a lot of people to thank for that, whether it's To the Stars Academy, Leslie Kane, Mark Blumenthal over at the New York Times, George Knapp. All these individuals have been a part of this in some way, shape, or form. So I can tell you some are willing to go on the record, some are not. But this one I'm working on right now, I have a Marine and a Navy serviceman coming forward for the very first time about some really dramatic events. I got comments from the base where it happened. I got comments from the Pentagon spokesperson, and I can't wait to see what people think of it. Again, I don't know exactly when, so I hate being
Are you writing it for the debrief?
Possible.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. That's a cool little insight that you gave us. I can't wait to read this article. I mean, look, the guy that I know is retired from the Air Force. He's or I guess it would be the Navy. I don't know. I always get confused as to why Navy isn't flying planes. That always confused me, but whatever. He is a commercial airline pilot now. So I don't think the time is right. I haven't asked him yet. And I mean, the way I even got into this conversation with him, I buttered him up for about 3 hours because the moment I found out he was an F-16 fighter pilot, that was the first question I wanted to ask him. Have you ever seen anything? But I didn't want him to think I was crazy. So I buttered him up with a good 2.5, 3 hour conversation because we were in the social place to do something like that. We had a great convo, and then I whipped it out. I was like, dude,
this always helps too. I'm not going to lie. I've had military and commercial pilots tell me things after a few glasses of wine or a couple beers that they would never say on the record in public. So for all you aspiring journalists or UFO researchers out there, you want to get the true story and what these people really feel, just get them wasted.
Get them wasted. Hey,
people getting wasted.
Hey, man, I wouldn't be surprised if that's like a CIA tactic. You want to get some info out of your target, throw a couple glasses of wine at them. They'll start talking. Don't worry about it.
Do you remember the CIA, I think it was, when they were like putting guys in in like brothels with prostitutes, and they would drug them with LSD and get them
Yeah.
wasted so that they
Yes.
could find out secrets. Like,
Yes.
it's been done, and it's probably happening now too.
Well, I don't put anything past our CIA. And that's kind of why I had look, man, like I love that we have a Chris Mellon, that we have a Hal Puthoff, that we got a Lou Elizondo, that we've got all of these guys. But the biggest red flag for me is that these are all ex-military guys. These are all guys that if they're given an order, especially if it's an order that is in the vein of, well, it's for the protection of America, they might just carry it out. And, I talked about this I guess we're just sort of naturally segueing into this, but I talked about it with MJ. My biggest fear, and I'll say it again, 40 years old. And since the moment I've been born, we've been sold nothing but war, Cold War, Iraq War, Second Iraq War, 9/11, Afghanistan, Sudan. The list goes on and on and on and on and on and on. And the military budget just balloons and balloons. And now it's at a point where it takes up 57% of our budget. 57%. So now we've got a Space Force coming, and the proposed cost for this Space Force is $698 billion. That's what they asked for in 2017. And that wasn't to get the program into space. That was just to start it. That was just, and we're talking about $698 billion a year, not just once, a year. So we're literally doubling the military budget. So now what does our fiscal budget go up to? It goes from 2 point whatever trillion to now 4 trillion, like how are you guys going to make this work? And I think the way you make it work is you have a coordinated effort with all of these, departments, and you sell a threat. You sell a threat. And the threat is extraterrestrial. And if we don't plan for this, we're going to be in a lot of trouble. We're going to be in a lot of trouble. And part of me fears that the next big thing that does come out, if it's something along the lines of, I don't know, a military jet getting shot down or some sort of dogfight where U.S. lives are put in danger, that would approve a budget like that.
Yeah.
You would get Congress and Senate to approve a budget in a heartbeat. And they're not going to do that out of the blue. They're going to build up to it slowly. It's a slow burn. And that's what we've been getting with this UAPTF and the ATIP program and these leaks and these pictures and these photos. For me, it feels like a slow build to another war. But this war is going to be a lot easier to point a target at because it's coming from the outside. We can all get in on this. We should all be banded under this, new Space Force and this new, idea of protection. And it scares the shit out of me because the guys that are selling this story are ex-CIA, disinformation agents, their jobs. Chris Mellon, when a nuclear weapon was lost, that's the guy they sent to find it. Like, these guys are incredibly in touch with the intelligence community, and they are in touch with the most shadiest, most secretest parts of our government. And I have a very hard time, and the only critique about Unidentified seasons 1 and 2 is this pro-military stance, as if they would never lie to us. They would never fly a B-2 bomber over Los Angeles just to see what would happen. They would never do that, but yet they did. Like when the question is asked, well, why would we test this on our own pilots? Well, it's very simple. If you want to know if your latest and greatest toy is, let's just say it's a Tic Tac that does crazy maneuvers, if you want to test that thing, you're not going to test it against a B+ jet from the Chinese. You're not going to test it from a Russian jet. You're going to test it against the best equipment on the planet. And who has that? We do. Nobody spends on military, like not even half of what we spend on military explorations and budget. It's just insane. So am I crazy? Am I nuts to think that? You know, and because I know like Alejandro Rojas, he's like, no, that there's no connection there. It's just a little too crazy. You know, you're making a lot of leaps. Am I making a lot of leaps? Because if you back up and you look at this information that's being released and how it's being released, and you compare it to, I don't know, how they sold us weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, they're very similar. Very, very similar in how they do it. The only difference is we haven't gotten a Colin Powell to go in front of the UN and make a great big speech and point to us where the, you know, because if they come out with a speech like that, somebody gets in front of the UN that is, you know, the Secretary of Defense, whoever, and starts giving out this dissertation on where we know the aliens are and where they're coming from and where their bases are, you know, dude, forget blank check, go for it, whatever you need. And that's what scares me. That's what really worries me about this topic. I want it to be real, but I also want to follow Occam's razor. The simplest explanation is probably what you're dealing with. And for me, the simplest explanation to all of this, and God knows I want to be wrong, is a military, it is a drum up to war. And the war is space. That's our new war. We got to conquer space. And if we don't conquer space, then the Chinese are going to kill us. If we don't conquer space, you know, the Russians are going to kill us. If we don't conquer space, then something from outside of space is going to kill us. It's this constant threat. And the ATIP program, the word threat, I found it interesting that they took that word out of it for the Unidentified Aerial Phenomena Task Force. I found it very strange that word was propped. I wonder why. But that's anyway.
A good point, man. Yeah.
Go for it. I mean, what do you think about my rant there?
No. Look, it's not a rant because you're extremely educated on the subject and you have insight that could feasibly be true. You're right. And so many people had issue with To the Stars Academy when it first came around because of the people involved. Ex-intelligence, military and everything, ex-skunk works even. And I completely understand that. So what I tell people when it comes to this is don't put all your eggs in one basket. I mean, look, I'm excited to talk to Lou Elizondo, man to man about the phenomenon. Is he selling me, a bucket of lies or disinformation? I don't know. But what I think is most important, and this is for all your viewers and listeners, if they're interested in the UFO topic, the military aspect, ATIP to the stars, it's one tiny fraction of all of this. The greater scheme of things. Are we alone in the universe? Have they visited? Do we possess the technology? Will we ever reach out to where they are and communicate? So while we can look at the military cases and argue and debate about what Elizondo is doing, who Richard Doty is Bob Lazar a bullshitter? We can have all those conversations, but at the end of the day, hundreds and hundreds of civilians in all walks of life are experiencing these phenomena at an alarming rate. And I don't mean alarming in terms of a threat. It's just astounding and staggering the amount of people who have seen a UFO, claimed a close encounter. So what I say is the military thing is one thing. Talk to the person at your coffee shop. Talk to, your priest if you go to confession at church. Talk to that person next to you on the bus about it. See if they've had an experience, because we're in the majority when it comes to this topic, civilians. So let's have our own conversations. Let's let the military and disinfo people do their thing, and let's study what we want to study as independent researchers. So that's kind of my answer to that. I don't put much stock into the whole military aspect of this because I agree with you wholeheartedly. I think Space Force is a fucking joke, and I think it's just an excuse to pump more money into the military industrial complex. I honestly do. They can paint it as exploring and reaching, but when you hear why this thing was created, it was to dominate. And that's never a good thing.
Right.
That is never a good thing.
Just look at the commercials they're playing to get people to join the Space Force. It is like propaganda 101. 101, dude. It is scary. It's scary.
It's embarrassing. It's offensive.
It's offensive. It's offensive. And with all of the issues that are happening here on terra firma, okay, we've already got Elon Musk. He can do whatever he wants with his billions. He doesn't use my tax dollars unless he gets, of course, subsidies, which I'm sure he does. But he doesn't have to answer to me because I don't contribute taxes to him. He doesn't collect taxes from me. On the other hand, you do. You do. The military does. And I'm sorry, but I've got zero interest in militarizing space. I'm not, I told MJ, I'm not scared of the Chinese. I'm more scared of a digital attack than I am an attack from space. I'm more scared of them shutting down our infrastructure than I am of them coming over here on boats and invading America. Like the logistics of that seems so silly to me. To cross the Pacific Ocean, they don't have the Air Force, they don't have the Marines, they just don't have the equipment to pull off an invasion of the United States. They just don't. Sorry to break everybody's bubble, but they don't. And I understand their threat, and I understand. Look, man, they are infiltrating, especially here in Hollywood, the things that they are doing to change films to be pro-China and pro-Chinese government are insane. The way they're gonna destroy this country is not a bomb. It's gonna be they're gonna watch us eat ourselves because we love to consume. We're consumers, and they know that's what our weakness is. So I think that's the way they'll attack. It won't be through a bomb. They're just gonna watch us literally consume our own tail. We're just going to eat ourselves until there's nothing left. And we're going to be spending trillions of dollars on a space force that is a waste of time. It's just a waste of, it's so dangerous. They've barely figured out how to maneuver through space and to fix a satellite. You want to weaponize it with soldiers and ships? Look, I'm all for Star Trek. I want to get there as soon as possible, but now's not the time, man. It's just not the time. We've got so many issues.
So many. They are literally flying too close to the sun, man, I think, in terms of this. And hey, look, I agree with you. Look, and I know you don't discuss politics, and we won't even go there. But
I love politics. It's just not a lot of people love my political opinion. That's I love it. I love it. Right. I can't get enough of it.
But dude,
yeah.
Look at what's going on in America right now. And I think if there is going to be an attack or an invasion, it's going to be it's going to be done in binary code. It's going to be done with hacking. It's going to be done with disinformation. And you're right. It's going to come with destabilizing us here on the ground and these little things that we type to each other every day in anger and in rage and in these little tribal bubbles that are created on the internet. It's not going to be up there. It's not going to be an invasion Independence Day style. I think you're right. I think there's a lot of a lot of solid things you brought up. Yeah.
Look at what's going on. Both sides, whether you call yourself a liberal or super conservative, both sides rioted in a year. Yeah. Both sides lost their shit, which to me tells me the government is doing a piss poor job at addressing the issues of Americans. And they have divided us. And I don't even know if it's a coordinated effort of our own government. Honestly, I think it could be as simple as the Russian government just dividing people on Facebook, dude, bots and disinformation and crazy shit. Like you can see it. It's happening right now. It is happening. Things are destabilizing. I don't think there's a coup happening because I just don't think this politician specifically has the organization or the intelligence to run a coup, and he doesn't have the support. He doesn't have military generals going, "We got you, Trump." He just doesn't have it, dude. He doesn't have the juice. I always love to tell this to my apocalyptic Trump people who think he's the end of the world. To me, George W. Bush II was a way worse president than Donald Trump. Way worse. I mean, you could argue that man was responsible for hundreds of thousands of deaths, and he has propelled us into wars that we've been in since I graduated high school.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, let's be brutally honest too. I mean, a lot of bad shit happened when Obama was in office as well. And I can say I voted for the guy twice. But look at the incredible amount of drone strikes that occurred during the Obama era. But okay,
no, talk about that. Shh.
I don't want to get too much into it. But
Obama's the greatest. It's like, come on, dude. Like,
but here's my point, man.
Yeah.
Here's my point. And you brought it up best. The government, they are not, and we use this term with a capital G, the government, whatever the hell that means. I mean, it is such a compartmentalized thing made up of thousands of people with their own beliefs, their own reasons, their own agendas, even. And the government is not as smart as we give them credit for. So I honestly think that they don't know as much as we think they know about UFOs. I just don't. I think it comes down to they don't know what we're dealing with in our skies, whether it's Russia, whether it's Chinese, whether it's from Zeta Reticuli. But they can try to control the information that gets out there and give this impression that they know what's going on. So for me, I think we have to look at it that way. We can talk about government conspiracies and cover-ups, and it's happened since day one with Roswell. They know the truth about all of it, but I don't tend to believe that. I think they're just in as much in the dark as we are on all of this, and that almost scares me even more.
Yeah. Well, can you hear me first of all?
Yes, I can. I know you. Okay. I know there's some glitch issues, but I can hear you.
I'm sure it'll kick in here in a second because I still got control of the chat and everything. So, by the way, guys, we're going to be all the questions that you're asking. I'm going to get to them. So definitely, if you have any questions for Ryan or myself, don't hesitate. Put them in there. I'm sure my camera will be coming on. I hope soon. Let me try this one thing real quick. Let me just.
They're trying to silence us, man.
Exit this app and let me see if I can get back in there real quick.
Yeah, do your thing.
This is the beauties of live streams. Is you never know what's gonna happen. It's unedited. That's why.
Oh, dude, when I recorded with Avi Loeb yesterday, I've never had so many issues in my life, and of course, it would happen when I'm interviewing a Harvard professor.
Right.
No, this is the glory of the internet in all its faults.
Let's see. Well, that camera's working. Okay, there we go. Okay.
Ooh, I got the sweet profile shot.
Sweet. Yeah. The terrible profile shot. Okay. So I'm sorry that was a distraction and we kind of got off topic. But what was the last thing you said? Because it was a good point.
Well, I wanted to circle back to the UAP issue in terms of I talked about this recently with a New York Post journalist who agreed we don't think the government knows shit about UAPs. We think that they're just in as much in the dark as we are. Are they in possession of a craft? Maybe. Do they know how to work it or how to use it? Probably not. No. So I honestly think that they don't know what's going on. And that's an issue.
I mean, but let me ask you this. How much, because there's two files floating around right now, the Senate Intelligence Committee. And I feel like this is sort of like the hot rumor in high school. It's being passed around like this rag doll and everybody knows this thing, but nobody's actually come out and said this secret. We got a little taste of it from that leaked photo, but, and I asked MJ, like, look, I'm assuming you've seen these files. I don't think you would put out a story like this unless you maybe had eyeballs on these files or at least have confirmed it in a multitude of different ways, or
100%.
seen parts of it, right? So it's there. It's the information is there, and this is only 2 reports. So when you say I don't think they know, I think they got a really damn good idea as to there has to be a theory. There has to be a hypothesis. Go on. I know you want to say something.
Oh no. I mean, and I can only elaborate in terms of what I've been told by, people like Nick Pope or Chris Mellon. There always will and always has existed within government an estimate of the situation. So yeah, absolutely, they have probably a ton of ideas and theories of what it could be. But when you look at these reports that were leaked about the UAP task force and what they're looking at, and the emails that were bouncing back, and I mean, I guess I can say this because a lot of other people were involved as well. I've seen conversations between intelligence agencies, different agencies, sharing the photos, sharing the reports, and all of them being like, "Whoa, what the fuck is going on? Whoa, wow, this is amazing." So to me, it maybe some of them have a good idea of what it is, but then you get that trickle down effect of we're going to be the last to know. Absolutely.
Without a doubt.
It can go both ways. Yeah.
Well, we are the lapdogs in the situation. No matter where any way you slice it, we're just sitting here looking up at the table, waiting for anything to fall that we could gobble up.
Table scraps, man.
We have to be comfortable with being in that position, as terrible as it is.
As humbling as that is. Yep.
Yeah. The only thing that's going to change that is if the White House lawn event takes place and it's just completely unavoidable as to, these things are here. Okay, let's have the discussion. But it's just like, dude, why are you going to wait to that point if that point's ever going to come, which I don't think it will. I don't think it'll happen like that. I think it'll be more like, almost District 9 where they just kind of crash land here or they run out of gas. And, it's like they didn't want to be here, just like we don't want them here. But dude, it's just just following Arkham's razor. Maybe they're just, again, they want people talking about UFOs because maybe we have figured out a vehicle that has the ability traveling through ocean water, our atmosphere, and into space. I mean, as crazy and as wild as that sounds, that we could possibly have a machine like that we know how to operate, that we know how it works. We built it because here's the thing. I will never, ever put it past human ingenuity and know-how and just sheer will to figure out something. Like, I think if the most secretive parts and most high, like a Skunk Works, if somebody from our government comes to Skunk Works and goes and puts on the table, I want a machine that can go from the depths of the ocean to the highest parts of our atmosphere and into space and come back. I think if you put that challenge in front of the smartest human beings on the planet, they're going to figure something out. They're going to come back. It may take them a while. It may take a lot of trial and error. But look, if you've had the last 60 years to do this trial and error and to try and figure out this technology, because like I said, maybe you did crack it. You just didn't know how to apply it to things. And that happens all the time with tech, all the time, where we make these wonderful breakthroughs and we just don't know how to use it. So we have to put it on the shelf until we have an application. Oh shit, remember that thing we discovered 4 years ago? That would be perfect for this, and then it works, Yeah. And it's like, to me, that makes more sense. It just makes more, it's more believable. It's more grounded. Do I want it to be that? No way, dude. I don't want it to be that. I don't want it to be some government Air Force secret plane. And look, and to say it's that would mean that you would have to ignore all of the other witness testimony, all of the other stories, everything. That means every single person that has ever spoken about this. And I think the best witness of all time are Betty and Barney Hill, just from the time frame of when they told their story and who they were as a couple in society at that time. They don't want attention. That's the last thing that couple wanted was eyeballs on their relationship. Okay. Right. And for them to tell a story like that, to me, is one of the best eyewitness testimonies you could ever put on the table, just because of the moxie that it would take for you to even utter some crazy shit like that in 1960, whatever it happened, when it was one of the most racist times in American history outside of the Civil War. It is, to me, the best. I can't ignore that. That to me is just unignorable. So when I go back to Occam's Razor, I'm like, oh man, like it doesn't explain Betty and Barney Hill. It just doesn't. Unless, of course, you go back to like those CIA tricks where they kidnap people. And they pump them with LSD, and maybe they put them in a room where these visions and these psychedelics trick them into thinking they got abducted, and then they dump them in the desert, and it's like you get this crazy story. It wouldn't shock me if in 1960 something, a bunch of CIA dudes saw this couple, didn't like it, and they're like, hey, you want to do this thing that we do to whatever? Yeah, let's go for it. They kidnap them, pump them with drugs, have them, put them in a room that's where they see crazy shit, and they come out with this wild story, and it's just like, I could see that happening, but man, that would it'd take a lot of work to get. Why? Yeah. Like, why? What's the motivation? It's a rabbit hole, man. This topic is a rabbit hole. And I love exploring every nook and cranny of this hole as we fall down it, because it might as well, dude. If it's an endless hole, we might as well look at all of it, because like we talked about earlier, if we can look at all of this and we can extrapolate some commonalities, some things that repeat, that's science, that's data. That's how we back shit up. That's how we get things out. So okay. This is going to be the last thing we talk about, because we've been going almost for 2 hours. And I told you I was going to keep you here.
Dude, I'm having a blast.
I'm glad you're here, dude. I'm glad we're having this conversation, because I told MJ, dude, I could go for another 10 hours right now, because this is, I mean, I think this needs
Jay's a busy guy. He is editor-in-chief.
I know.
So his time is very valuable.
Mine, on the other hand, and a half.
Yeah,
he gave me an hour and a half, and I think that's awesome. So speaking of the debrief, that's what I wanted to talk about next. And sort of, I guess, how there's so many questions I have about this entity, because I love it so much. I honestly, I use it all the time for content. I'm constantly reading articles on there and being like, yep, okay, I could talk about that. This has to do with everything that we're doing here on the channel. And the point of this channel is to kill stigma, is to break down that taboo, because I hate when people are scared to say UFO. Who gives a shit? People know what UFO means. Your grandma knows what UFO means. Your sister, your brother, your uncle, your most hated enemy. They all know what the acronym UFO. They don't know UAP, man.
Right.
And this is one of my biggest issues with the community, with this field. There's way too many acronyms. Holy shit. Holy shit. There's way too many acronyms. Let's kill the acronyms. That would be my next call to arms. Kill the acronyms. Yeah. Anyway, so I guess, how did you get involved with the debrief? That's my first question.
Yeah, so I mean, I've been working with Micah Hang and MJ Benias for a while now. I mean, I talk to these guys on a daily basis, very early on, way before the debrief was even a glimmer in their eyes. And we all share stories. I think that's what's really important about this research field of quote unquote ufology, is sharing information. Stop holding things close to the chest. If you truly want the truth, that can't just start and end with you. It has to be for everyone. So for me, when I caught wind of something that these guys were working on, and Micah had sort of teased it to me on several occasions. He's like, Ryan, we've been working together for a long time. I love your outlooks, your perspectives, your approach, and I love your writing. I mean, Micah wrote the foreword to the first edition of my book, and that's something I will always hold dear to me. He's such an awesome person in general. But besides kissing the ass of my superiors at the debrief, I approached them just like I did you. I was like, hey, man, I love what you're doing. If you want to have a conversation with me, I'd love to have it. But yeah, just putting it out there. So I asked Micah, I'm like, hey, if you're looking for writers, I'd love to give it a shot. And I pitched them an idea. I wrote my first article, and sort of the rest is history. I'm writing stuff almost daily at this point for them. And I just respect what they're doing. I think it's untapped territory, emerging science, disruptive science and technology, defense, and UFOs. So, we Black people think we're part of some disinformation campaign, or we're being funded by the stars, or the DOD or something. I can tell you this: it was three guys who came together, Tim McMillan, MJ Benias, and Micah, and said, we want to do our own thing. We're sick of working under the restrictions of Vice, of Popular Mechanics, of all these other outlets that they've worked for. Let's do this. And they built it from the ground up, and I highly respect anyone who's willing to take the risk to do that. And I'm honored to be even just a tiny sliver of that.
Well, I got to tell you, the timing of it is impeccable. I think this is, like I said, and this is one of the things that leads me to believe, man, something I've never had this feeling before of, man, I have this weird feeling something big is bubbling. Something is going to happen. And the debrief and channels like this and channels like yours are positioning themselves to break down whatever that information is when it comes out. Of course, I'll probably be relying more on you guys because I'm not the journalist. I'm just the guy who sits here and gives his opinion about the shit that's coming out, but I try to, here's the thing with this topic is like, there's not a lot of young voices out there. It's a lot of voices that have been around for a long time, and they're kind of droning. They get a little boring, and it's just like, we need to spice shit up a little bit here, man. We need to rock the boat. We need to ask the questions that make people uncomfortable. And it's just like our political figures. Yeah, you aspire. I love AOC, and I love the squad, and I love Trump or whoever it is that you love, but these people are not celebrities. There are servants. There are our public servants. They are here to serve us. Stop treating them like celebrities and start holding their feet to the fire. It's the same thing with all of these journalists or people that have been in the field for a long time that have sort of told stories that don't really have, are willy winky wonky when it comes to facts, or the facts maybe after years and years sort of deteriorate and don't add up to what people thought it added up to. It's okay to be wrong. It's okay to be wrong on this topic. If you for 10 years thought Bob Lazar was telling the truth and you come across information that destroys that belief, it's okay. Like, it's okay, bro. It is more. I will give you the world if you correct yourself and you say, look, I got this wrong. Here's what was wrong about it. Let's discuss it. How can we avoid this in the future? Let's learn from it, as opposed to just putting our head in the sand and keep pushing the story because I can't be wrong now. I've already gone this far. It's just like, no, dude, it's okay. You can get off of this train and you can correct it, and you're going to get more respect from it. And I think, again, the debrief and folks like you, that's the future. That's the future. I don't care. I'm not here to make you comfortable. You're not a celebrity. I'm not here to kiss your ass. I'm here to ask you some tough questions. And look, if you don't have the answer, cool. But at least the question is asked.
Yes.
Because if the question is asked, even if it isn't answered, there's a reaction. There's things that you get even when people don't give you answers. There's sometimes answers that are given in those non-answers. So, but if you don't get those little nuggets of gems if you don't ask the question. And I think that's the thing that I saw in this field, and the reason why I started this channel is because I would see shows like, you know, Skinwalker Ranch or these terrible, you know, Ancient Aliens, and I'm like, dude, nobody is calling these productions out. Nobody is giving a review of these shows, because, you know, I'm sure you're in my age range. I'm sure you play video games. You're a playwright. You're an artist. You're always in the sort of in pop culture, and you know that when a new movie comes out, like, and I'm going to have a Mandalorian question here in a couple minutes, but like when a new movie comes out, you know, there is a group of dudes who are sitting in a room and they're talking about what they loved or hated about that movie. And I think nobody's ever done that with the UFO community. So if there's someone who could come out and be like, hey, watched your movie, this is what I didn't like about it, this is what I loved about it. You know, like, I love James Fox. I think that his phenomenon is a beautiful sort of timeline of how we got from the first Kenneth Arnold to how we got to today. Beautiful. It would be a DVD I would play if this was a subject in high school. That would be the first probably DVD I would pop in there. And then the second thing would be seasons 1 and 2 of Unidentified. That would be the curriculum if this was a topic for me in like a high school or college or whatever. But even with that said, there are issues with that show. There are issues with those films. And you know, for me, like, one of my critiques of James Fox's films are the photos that he shows of these things, right? They're just flat. There's no dimension to them. I get it. They're old photos, but there are ways you could Photoshop those photos to make them look three-dimensional, to engage your audience.
I get that, yeah.
The thing with James Fox is that, yes, he's making these films, he's hustling, he's getting the money, he's getting the teams together, he's doing all the work, he's getting all the camera equipment, and I get that because I've done that. So I know how hard it is to make a film, put it out there for people to judge, and then be like, no, I don't like your opinion. You know, like, you get very defensive of it, because I understand what it's like to sit in a dungeon and edit your film for 4 months. I know that process better than most people. Okay, so I get it, but there are things that can elevate your filmmaking to really engage your audience more. Because I watched that movie with my girlfriend. I fell asleep. Like, I had to go back the next day and watch it. Maybe I was just tired, and that's not a knock against the film, but I'm like, there's no. My critique is if there's no growth as a filmmaker. This movie is not incredibly different than his previous films. It's like when you look at Quentin Tarantino's library, you see the growth as a filmmaker from when he was writing Reservoir Dogs, or any other, you know, like True Romance. When he wrote that, you could see the development of this man's writing and his filmmaking and his style. It's always changing. It's always evolving, but there's still like little tastes of, oh, this is a Quentin Tarantino film because this thing happened, you know?
Yeah.
And that's why I started the channel, because I wanted to hold these guys' feet to the fire, because nobody's doing it. And you know, for me, if it ups your game, man, that's better for everyone. It's better for everyone, you know?
Dude, well, let me say this. The first thing I ever saw of yours was your critique and review of the phenomenon. And I completely understand where you're coming from. And it was refreshing to see someone do that, to challenge it. Because when you become a semi-celebrity in this niche field of ufology or UFO entertainment, people can be either, you know, super critical and just flat out mean and disrespectful, or they hold you to no standards whatsoever. They're very unforgiving or trustful of what you're doing and your intentions. So I'm glad to see a channel out there that is willing to kind of, you know, bridge those.
Oh no, we lost them. That's all right. We'll get them back here in a second. Like, dude, thank you for the comment, Rodrigo. That's a nice thing. Unfortunately, I'm just not that kind of writer. I would love to do a video opinion column for the Debrief. That would be very cool. But let's wait a couple minutes here, see if we can get Ryan back in. I'll send him another invite. Oh, wait. Nope. I think he's back in here. Yep. There he goes. Okay.
I'm back.
Okay. Okay, cool. Awesome. That's cool. I filled it in. No worries. Man, you know what I found out here in 4 short live shows? I'm a pretty damn good producer. But anyway, so you were saying, so yeah, you were giving me compliments. Please continue.
Oh, yes. Continue with that. No, rightfully deserved, man. I mean, again, there's times where people need to be challenged. And I think it's very important. It's essential what you're doing. You are a part of this process of either disclosure or just the acceptance of this topic and shedding that ridicule factor, which at the end of the day is what most of us in the UFO field are trying to do. That's been one of my objectives since day one, since I was 13 years old, is to not get made fun of when I bring this up, to not lose second dates because on the first one I said I was a UFO researcher. That stuff matters. And this topic will never grow if we don't have that acceptance. And I think it's awesome what you're doing. So I mean, that's my 2 cents on challenging UFO people. Do it hard, do it as much as you can, because if we're going to bring this information out there, it deserves to be challenged, just like any other scientific field or theory would be. Let's hold ourselves to the standards that we expect from the other scientific fields. If you really want it to be an ology, there needs to be something to study and something to challenge. And you brought up the most important part. You can't be afraid to change your mind. My mentor, Peter Robbins, an investigative writer in the UFO field, that's the first thing he taught me. Besides having empathy for individuals you're interviewing, which is essential, you have to be willing to admit when you're wrong, or when something's not on the up and up, or when you're just flat out, finding something that's not real or a hoax. So do it, man. Highlight what you can, give your brutal, honest opinions, or else we're never going to grow.
Right. No, I agree, man. And yeah, I'm not stopping. Like it's the wheels on this train have already gone into motion. And like I said,
call me out on my own bullshit.
Oh, dude, I do it. No issues on that whatsoever. That's why I asked you about Bob Lazar, because I wanted to talk about that tweet you said, because I'm like, wow, dude, this guy just got interviewed by George Knapp, which, by the way, was a great interview. And if you want more details about Ryan's book, go check out that interview, because they really go into depth on Ryan's book if you can't afford it. But I have included the Amazon link, so please order the book. But check out. Here's the thing, right? Like, drives me bonkers when our UFO heroes or ologists, whatever you want to label them, when they put information behind a paywall. Now, the way you do it, I love it. You've got a Patreon, and if you're part of the Patreon, you get access a day or two earlier. Awesome. Great. Gives a reason to support you. And look, you're working your ass off. And this is a new medium. Like this YouTube world, this Twitch world, understand that if you're watching something on YouTube, like you are right now, the 7 people that are following, we had up to 12 here a little while ago, which is, there's a lot of hard work. There's a lot of spending of your own money. And so I don't mind folks trying to get that back, or trying to build a channel that eventually, fuels their passion financially. What's wrong with that? Nothing. Zero. Zip. It's when you put that information behind a paywall, and the only way you can access it is if you give me money. Give me money, buy my book. Like I did a review on Linda Moulton Howe. God, I went deep on Linda, like 6 episodes. I bought her DVD. I bought a book. Like the quality is terrible of how you receive it. I did an unboxing. I went balls deep on Linda Moulton Howe. I don't mean to say that in a sexist way. That's just the first thing that came out of my mouth.
That better be your intro.
Yeah, right. So, but like at the end of it, first of all, I loved her documentary. like the original document. That's the one I bought, Strange Harvest.
Strange Harvest, yeah.
And I loved the music. I loved the camera, the cinematography. It felt so In Search Of with Leonard. It just gave me all of those wonderful feels.
Right.
And I had to and I had to sit back because I had a big rant on Linda, especially when I saw her on the Skinwalker Ranch show, and I was just like, this is bullshit. I just got so angry because I'm like, man, the things that you guys are jumping to with zero work done, you're just jumping to these conclusions. Anyway, I was like, I watched her film and I stepped back. I was like, you know what? This film was made in 1978, if I'm not mistaken. In 1978, as a woman to pull together a film crew and edit, shoot, write, and distribute her own film, holy shit, you have to bow down and give your respect to that woman, because name me one female director from the 1970s that is successful today. Go for it. Go for it.
Good luck with that, man.
Like, go for it. I think the first person that comes into mind is Penny Marshall, and maybe there are other, I'm sure there are, but it's a tough field to crack as a woman, and she did it, and she zero apologies. So I gotta give her love on that part, because I loved it. I loved Strange Harvest, but I could watch that film and go, yeah, all of this is not very good science. This is just not. And I break down the film. Please go watch it if you haven't already. But
well, that's the thing, dude. Like, you can respect the information being brought forward. You can respect the technical, things about the film, how it was shot, how they did certain things, and that's all fine. But nothing's ever perfect, and you're gonna have your own personal opinions on it and what could be better. And again, like, we need that. I always ask for feedback. Whether on YouTube or the podcast, like, guys, tell me what I can do better. Because, I get called out for being too atmospheric or dramatic when I do my storytelling episodes. And that's because I come from the world of theater. I can't escape that. But I'm going to take that feedback and I'm going to try to do what I can to make it better. So, yeah, man, I think it's really important that you can take what you want from something, but you can also be critical of it. I mean, that's the beauty of free will and being able to express our own beliefs and thoughts on things. So, no, I totally respect that. Strange Harvest, like, come on. Like, that blew my mind in terms of, like, cattle mutilation, something I'd never looked into.
Well,
was it a perfect film? No.
Well, it's a $50 film, after shipping and all of that stuff.
That's
and like the jewel case, like, I would do when I open this, I'm like, are you kidding me, Linda? Really? Really?
It's like
the jewel case after a $50 DVD. Like, you can't find clips of this film anywhere. As she has done an amazing job at making sure no one has got eyes on this movie except for her. And gotta give it to her. But what I don't have to give her is when I look at her subscriber count and I just do percentages, and very small percentages of what her possible income might be. It's disgusting. It is insane how much money this woman possibly makes, and the way she's shipping things, the way she's presenting her information, the way she charges for her information. Like, I don't think you're allowed to make a documentary about underground bases in Antarctica if you don't step foot in Antarctica.
That's fair. That's totally fair. Okay, here's my thoughts on the pay thing. Because I remember someone reaching out to me when I posted, like, I have a new bonus episode on the Patreon. If you want to help support the show and listen, like, here's a link. And some guy was like, oh, I have to pay for the information? No, thanks. And I understand that mentality, but at the same time, all I said to this person was, I do a podcast weekly, completely for free for the public. I put my own money into everything from my equipment to the Wi-Fi, to hosting the audio, to hosting the website, to going out and interviewing people. Like, I'm not making money, man. If anyone thinks there's like real money to be had in the UFO research world, that's a lie. That changes when it comes to things like what you're talking about, where everything is behind a paywall and these people are just raking in the dough for every word that spews from their mouth.
Right.
And this isn't even a defense. This is just common sense. I do a free show every week. If you want more, I supply that. In return, I'd love some help on getting better equipment.
Right.
Being able to not go to work for a day so that I could go to Connecticut and interview a UFO witness.
Right.
And then it'll supplement what I missed at work that night.
Chances are
millions here.
Yeah, I mean, chances are if you're sending money to a YouTube channel, they're using whatever money you just sent them to buy better shit to do their YouTube channel. You know, like that's where it's at. You know, I'm definitely not making money on this. I just started this channel less than a year ago, so nowhere near that sort of that claim. But do I want to get there? Fuck yeah! Why wouldn't I?
Get there, man.
You know, I want to be the spot where people come to when a story breaks out. I would love to get Lou's opinion on it. Let's see what Lou has to say. You know, let's see what Ryan has to say, because people are going, and look, if they do it for their Spider-Man movies and their Batman movies and their Mandalorians, they'll do it for UFO stories. And if the news is solid, if it's credible, because like I love when a big story breaks and I start getting texts from people who don't follow this. I love sending them the link to my show. Already did a breakdown. Check it out.
Boom,
you know, like, you know, and if I could just become a spot where people are like, oh shit, that's a crazy story. I wonder what Lou's got to say, and go check out their show, you know, and get the right information, because that's what happens with these stories is a New York Post or a New York Times. They don't get the details right. And that's okay. It's okay to be wrong. Like I said, but it's just like, you got to correct them. You got to fix them. And if you don't, then that's on you. But I mean, I feel like that's what we're trying to do here, and I think that's what you're trying to do, and I can't appreciate your work enough. And we sort of went off on a tangent. I wanted to talk really quick about one of the newer stories on the debrief with the Swiss UFO case. Which is really cool. I'm not going to talk about the whole case just because we've been going for a long time and I don't want to kill you. But check out the debrief.org. It's a very interesting case. One of my questions to you about this case was, there was a video linked with it. And it looked like it was snowing. Was it snowing, or were those things, those particles that were floating around in the video, were those the supposed particles or the residue that was left on, you know, the shutters and the doors that they collected? Or was that just snow? Was it snowing?
This is such a good question, Luis, and I hate to be a bummer, man, but
okay, if you don't know, that's fine. You didn't write the story, but I figured I'd ask.
I had nothing to do with that story. I haven't even had time to read through the whole thing yet, so I'm going to be honest with you. I don't want to guess or speculate. It's irresponsible. But I think that is a valid question and should be asked of the journalist who wrote it. So please reach out to Tim. He's extremely accessible. And that's the other thing too. If we cover something on the debrief and you have issue with it, or there's a correction that you think should be there, or you have developments, please reach out to anyone over there, because they're extremely receptive.
Well, I got the editor-in-chief on this show, and I was not expecting that to happen whatsoever. I was just like, wow, okay, cool. These guys want to talk about it. They've got no issues doing it, and
we want the truth, man. Like, that's why that article that Tim broke like a month ago with the photo and the leaked reports.
It was the first story on the site.
It was the first story, and also that was a year in the making. Like, we didn't just come up with that. Some intelligence agent didn't like call Tim a week before we dropped this thing. They went heavy into vetting these people and fact checking, and that's what you're going to get from the debrief. When I hand over an article to MJ, the first response I usually get is this verified? This is shit. Like you gotta up your writing. Like they're not afraid to say when things are not to the level that they want and what the public should expect from the debrief. Right. So I think, yeah, man, these things take time. So that article took a year to get out to the public.
I mean, like I said, they're doing an amazing job. They're dropping sometimes 2 to 3 articles a day. So if you haven't put that website in your favorites, check your pulse, man. You might be dead. Because if you want some good info, that's the place to get it. That's the first place I check. I'm sure that's the first place Ryan probably goes to, and a lot of other folks are starting to go to now, because like I said, that website has positioned itself perfectly for the times.
Thank you.
And I think it's going to be. I love that somebody corrected that New York Post. I think the New York Post had stolen the thunder of the debrief on one of these stories, and somebody had corrected it. It's like, no. That wasn't put out by the New York Post. The reason why it went a little more viral is because the New York Post shared it, but that story originated at the debrief, and I was like, awesome, because I don't want the New York Post stealing the thunder from you guys. I think they do zero work. They just share the story, kind of like me, but at least I'm video.
Well, look, journalism has changed so much. Anyone can call themselves a journalist. I didn't go to school for journalism. So, in terms of that, I don't really have a right to call myself a journalist. I'm a freelance writer. But what you're talking about was an article that Tim and I wrote that dropped, and it was picked up by other outlets, some of which credited us. The New York Post did give us credit and link us, which I definitely respect. But yeah, man, we live in an age where things are just recycled and regurgitated, and just a few words are changed. And I hate that. I hate that about the journalistic world we live in. But like you said, with a lot of these things, you can't unring that bell. It's gonna keep happening. Right. And all we can really do at the debrief is come up with unique stories and hopefully break them, and just hope that the public reacts. If it gets picked up by someone else, that's good in one way. I mean, it's getting out to more people. Fox News picked it up. CNN picked some of our stuff up. Snopes.com picked us up and said we were telling the truth.
Yeah, that's the one I was talking about, the Snopes one, the one where they corrected it, and they were like, yeah, no, this is true. Well, dude, the thing I think I'm going to do is at some point, I'm definitely going to ask everyone at the debrief on this show, because I want to pick everyone's brain on there.
Do it.
And I'll reference you and MJ when I ask the next couple guys to come on.
Please do.
But I think I will solicit the debrief. Hey, you guys need a video aspect. You guys need a video column opinion, and I think this duo right here is looking pretty sexy. I don't know about you, Ryan. I don't know about you. All right.
Dude, I am loving the stash. That's all I'm going to say.
Hey, you know what, man? It's hilarious. I think my family hates the stash. I have not cut my hair except for right here.
Right.
Since quarantine started. Since March, I think it was the last time I cut my hair. These heads.
I'm just giving you shit because I can't grow a beard or a mustache like that.
I'm sure you can. You've got a 5 o'clock shadow. This is the only part on my face that grows. Everything else is patchy, like super patchy. But I was like, you know what, man? I'm growing my hair. I almost got a ponytail length. Everybody hates it. They can't stand it. They're like, when are you gonna cut your hair? When are you gonna cut your hair? I'm like, quarantine, man. It's just like, it's quarantine. I've never grown my hair this long. I want to see what it looks like when it gets super long. And the reason why I grew the mustache, I was like, you know what? I'm an actor. It's time to change some shit up.
Totally, man.
And guess what? I've booked more work. More work. Might as well
reinvented yourself.
Yeah, I don't know about that, but the mustache has definitely added a different look.
Yeah,
and that's how I'll leave it. Okay, dude. Well, so. I swear to God, this is my last question, and you can take as long as you want to answer it, or as you can answer it in one word, because I've already kept you here 2.5 hours.
No worries at all, man.
And please, please, please come back. I know you will. I know I don't even have to ask you, because this has been a great convo. I know you like the show, so I'm a fan 100%. Of you, a fan of me, and I might be bothering you a lot. Don't be surprised if I try to talk you into a bi-weekly, monthly sort of show. But anyway.
Done. Consider it done.
Consider it done. All right, you heard it here, folks. So what, to your best guess, are we dealing with? What is your best guess? Is this alien? Is this top secret government vehicles? Is this interdimensional? Is this a weather phenomenon? What's your best stab at it? If you had to go to Vegas and all of these options were on the roulette table and you had to put all of your chips on one of these things, what would you put it on?
I got to put it on one, huh?
Yeah, I'm gonna paint you in a corner here.
Damn. Yeah, because I mean, of course,
travelers, whatever. Yep. I don't care what your theory is. Just throw it out. I'm just curious.
Yeah, of course. And my passive answer is all of them, because that's the God's honest truth. I think we're not dealing with one source for these phenomena. But if I had to choose one,
this is Vegas. This is UFO Vegas. UFO Vegas. You're at the roulette table. The wheel's spinning.
Okay. I'm going to have to go with extraterrestrial. I mean, for me, it's the most logical explanation. It's the one we could try to scientifically study the most, I think, over time travel and interdimensional and everything in between with that. But yeah, I guess if I really had to put my money on it, I'd have to go with extraterrestrial. And I know that's probably boring and predictable, but
what is boring about extraterrestrial beings visiting the planet? What's boring about that? I know there've been a lot of movies and sort of our like I remember, and I hate to use this example because it's such a horrific thing to think of, but I remember like watching 9/11. I'm like, God, that almost looks fake. Like it's so real that it almost looks fake, if that makes sense, because movies and all of it, like my expectations of what an explosion looks like is not what an explosion is in real life. Like they're completely different. Okay, so I got your answer on that. I do have some questions from folks in the audience. Are you sure with answering a couple?
Oh, totally, man.
Okay, all right. So let me see if I go up to the top and see what we can find here. All right. Question marks. I'm looking for question marks here, folks. And if I missed your question, do me a favor, put it back in the chat. You're helping me produce the show. Congratulations.
Rinse and repeat. Yeah.
Congratulations. You are now a producer. So I'm still looking. There was a Mandalorian question in here somewhere.
Ooh.
And I wanted to, because I saw it and I was like, oh, I'm going to get back. Okay, here it is. Okay. On a different note, does Ryan think the Mandalorian put Star Wars back on track? Was it ever out of track? And by the way, guys, show us your baby Yodas. Okay. Oh, you've got an actual baby Yoda. This ain't a baby. This is like an old stuffed Yoda, but he's tiny, so you can almost call him.
I love it, man. Yeah. I got this little guy, my Grogu. Nice. I hold him dear. It's probably the only child I'm ever gonna have, to be honest. So. I hold him very sacred. That's a great question. Hi, Rodrigo. Rodrigo's been a big supporter of mine for a really long time. So I have to thank him for being here.
Dude, thank you. Yes, I'm going to thank you, Rodrigo. Thank you for being here.
I'm sure he's a Recon fan.
By the way, Angeli, Street, Michelle, Elias, JC, all of you guys that have been here for the whole show, I cannot thank you enough. Werewolf, Rodrigo, Chris, Conflict Radio. I mean, these are all new folks to the show. I want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you so much for coming aboard and getting weird with me and Ryan. So answer the damn question, Ryan. The Mandalorian, is it back on track? Star Wars, is it dead or alive?
Absolutely, man. I think the Mandalorian is probably the best thing to come out of the Disney buyout of Lucasfilm and the Star Wars universe. I was a huge fan of the extended universe back in the day with all the books. I got all of them. And then I was super pissed off when Disney said, nope, throwing all that out. We're not using any of it. And then they did use some of it and didn't give the people credit. Okay, back on track. The Mandalorian is one of the best shows I've seen in a really long time. Not just because I'm a Boba Fett fan or Mandalorian fan, but I just think they knocked it out of the park. A cosmic, Wild West, like it doesn't get much better than that. And I think they just hit they hit those genres so well. Back on track though, I take issue with, because I really enjoyed a lot of the aspects of the new trilogy, and I know a lot of people didn't. I know, man. Hear me out. Just hear me out.
I hear you out. Listen,
Okay.
I got a pretty controversial statement too.
Okay.
I think the Matrix trilogy is one of the most underrated trilogies of all time. Yeah, I threw that grenade in there. All right, I'm throwing that grenade, I'm walking away.
That's a conversation we should definitely have.
For sure.
I really like the nostalgic feel of Force Awakens. It was safe. I get that. Like it was appealing to the fans to get them back into it. Whatever. I loved Last Jedi. I really did. I really did, man.
Breaking my heart. Did we just become enemies?
No, come on. As a filmmaker, you have to admit there were some beautiful shots in there, at least.
Look, from a cinematography standpoint, sure, but I mean, I could point to any film and do that. You know, there's always like a cinematographer is always going to get a decent track shot or something that looks great in camera, but that doesn't make the whole film good. But yeah, okay, come on. I'll give you that. What else you got?
I liked that they took some risks with that one. I really do. I thought, like they did the safe thing with the first one. Let's see what someone else's vision would be of this. And then they kind of retconned everything in that last garbage dump of a movie. And I hated that one. Absolutely hated it. So out of all the new Star Wars stuff, I'm going to go with Last Jedi, my number 3, Rogue One, my number 2, and Mandalorian by light years number 1. I think it's an incredible show.
But and now I don't back on track.
And now this dude's gone though, so I don't know what's going to happen. Like they're probably going to lose a lot of their viewers.
No, they'll Disney Plus that. There'll be a Grogu show for sure, without a doubt.
I did not even think about that.
I promise you. There'll be some show surrounded around that character. It sells too many toys not to.
Such a good point. Yeah.
So Star Wars back on track?
Yes. I think some of the announcements about what they're doing, some of them I'm like, oh God, cash grab, too much. But there were some where I'm like, yeah, totally. I want to see an Obi-Wan show. I want to see oh God, who was Rosario Dawson's character?
Ahsoka Tano.
There you go. Like, I think that's an awesome character. I watched some of Clone Wars, so I kind of got the references, but I think she's going to do an incredible job with what she's been given. So yeah, man, I'm not ready to give up on Disney just yet when it comes to Star Wars.
Well, I can tell you, I was almost ready to give up after Last Jedi. And man, I could tell, it was too Harry Potter for me. They were taking a lot of liberties with the Force, but I think the biggest one was when Leia was in the vacuum of space and then flew to a door that one was opened. For some reason, the vacuum of space did not apply. I just was like, what's going on here? Dude, look, here's the beautiful thing about sort of the time of cinema that we live in is I think it's okay. And I know a lot of people are going to hate this, but I think it is okay to retcon the entire 9 movies and do them over from the beginning, from the very beginning. You know, like if we could do it for Spider-Man, if you could do it for Batman, every year there's a new origin Batman movie. Like, okay, how many times do I got to hear about Batman's origin? Like, let's see Darth Vader's origin one more time. I'm down for that. You know, let's do that again. Let's see how the Empire was built. You know, let's look at something like, because I agree with you. Rogue One, when I saw Rogue One, I'm like, they get it. Okay, this is going to be great. Like that movie put a lot of faith in me, but then the other films started following out, and like the Han Solo and all these other movies, I'm just like, dude, what's going on? What's happening? Why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? Is the thing I love. And then Mandalorian hit, and I was like, I'm back. They're back. Yep. Everyone's back. And you said something about expanded universe. I've never gotten to the expanded universe, never read the books, but I did stumble on. And there's a great YouTube channel. I'm sorry I don't know the YouTube channel off the top of my head, but somebody took the Thrawn, the first half of the story of Thrawn, and not animated but took all of the pictures out of the comic and they did a voiceover for the dialogue in the comic book. So every character has a different voice, and it's just a great thing to listen to in the background. But I cannot wait to see Thrawn on the big screen, because I think this is the smartest character in Star Wars. He's so smart, and I love characters. Like, one of my favorite books ever is Ender's Game, and just this the ability that it just this idea that Ender's just better than Air. He's just different. He's built, and that's what Thrawn is, and just how he manipulates the Emperor, and how he manipulates Darth Vader, and how he gets these things out of very powerful people, and how he himself becomes more powerful, but the philosophy behind it and why he's doing it is so good. It's not the boring, I want power and I want to be the most powerful thing in this galactic, power. No, there's a philosophy. I'm preparing for something. I need this fleet. I need this powerful space fleet because something bigger is coming and we need to be on the same page. And I'm like, yes, like I want to see a good reason as to why we need the Empire. You know, like I would love to see that side of things, and Mandalorian does that very nicely, like with that Bill Burr character and how he was just used by the Empire, and he saw millions or hundreds of thousands of his own stormtrooper brethren destroyed because of the ego of the Empire. You know, like I loved it, and how he had, like he was a former stormtrooper, but he's changed, and that experience changed him. I was just like, dude, these guys are doing some cool stuff. But anyway.
Yeah. Well, dude, I mean, that's what's important. They're giving these characters arcs. And I think a lot of villains often lack. I mean, Marvel's the prime example. Name me like one really good villain in any of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. There's very little.
I think the best one is Thanos, because he had a philosophy as to what he was doing. You know, 100%. There was a reason as to why he wanted to destroy half of the galaxy. It's because it's America. I love that the galaxy's America. We just consume too much. It's time to get rid of half of you motherfuckers. Like, it's like, damn, dude, that is some harsh shit. But
I know.
Hey, sometimes you got to make some tough choices. And it's funny because the aftermath of that in the first hour of this part 2 was like, oh, Earth is, look, there's whales back in the harbor, like that year or the 4 months where everybody was in quarantine, how the air was cleaner and animals started showing back up in places that they weren't before. Like that was, that's fun to explore stuff like that.
It is.
But anyway, man, I've had you on here forever. I think I've asked you every single question on my list. You've been so damn gracious with your time.
Oh, my pleasure, brother.
And I cannot appreciate it enough, dude. I'm definitely going to have you back. I'm definitely going to, encourage folks to check out your show. Don't hesitate. There's room for everyone, and there's room for a lot of different opinions here. But yes, dude, thank you so much for coming aboard, getting weird with me here. Want to thank everybody in the chat that joined us today. I just thank you. And I guess, I want to say thank you. I want to say thank you to DOS Tapes, because you do hear their music at the beginning and the end of the show. Their SoundCloud link is in the description below. They're a super fun band to go check out. Want to say thank you to the sponsor, BlueMarlinChronicles.com, purveyors of the world's finest fishing tackle since 1995. Want to thank all of you guys out there. Thank you so much for coming aboard, getting weird with me here on the Unidentified Celebrity Review, your home for credible news, reviews, and commentary on everything UFOs and sometimes other things. So until next time, you guys, thank you so much. Don't forget to hit that subscribe. Don't forget to follow. Don't forget to hit that bell. So that way, when we have these wonderful guests like Ryan Sprague or anybody else come on the show, you're the first to be notified about it. So thank you guys again. Can't thank you enough. It's going to come out of my mouth a billion more times. So thank you. Until next time, peace.